Introduction. You're the greatest project you'll ever work on. Leanna Vogel. A healthy life is a happy life, or that is what society tells you. Yet time and again we are plagued with the reality that modern-day life is not set up for healthy living. Take a look at the working hours, where countless people are stuck behind desks and return home only to pick out what is easiest in the fridge. Or they might find it easier simply to stop at a fast food franchise for a quick meal. When a person wants to shed those pounds back off, it is not that easy. There is no quick fix formula for weight loss, and neither is there a one-size-fits-all diet. If that were the case, everyone would be doing it. However, strategies are formulated and designed to help people with their weight loss journey. Evidence has shown that nutrition is the biggest factor when it comes to weight loss. Now comes the cue for keto dieting, a weight loss method that has been trending for a while now. How come? Because keto dieting takes a scientific approach to weight loss. It focuses on the digestive system and the energy the body uses to function. Carbs. But here is the tricky part. Carbs are not the only source of energy the body uses to function. There is another source, called ketones. Keto dieting focuses on burning body fat, which has a notorious reputation of being hard to get rid of. And this book provides you with all the necessary steps and instructions to help shed the weight and live a healthier, happier life. But again, it is not just about keto dieting, but also intermittent fasting. It has a different approach to weight loss, but uses the same process of placing the body in a state of ketosis. Intermittent fasting also has such a wide variety of choices that it would be near impossible not to find something to suit your routine. And best of all, if you want to, you can combine them. Come with me through the step-by-step guide to both health and weight loss. You will learn the knowledge you need about keto dieting and intermittent fasting, as well as incorporate it into your busy modern-day life. You will also learn to avoid the common traps, myths, and issues that come with these two dieting tactics and learn how to overcome some of the biggest obstacles when it comes to a weight loss journey. The first journey to weight loss is finding the necessary information. Once you have the information, you need to start a plan. And once you put a plan into action, watch your success and weight loss fall into formation. So, let's start with the first and very critical step you need to start your amazing journey into greater health and weight loss. Chapter 1. Keto Diet. Keto dieting is a lifestyle change. It is growing awareness of what you are eating and understanding just what food you are putting into your body. The biggest reason might be weight loss, but keto dieting opens the floodgates for a wide variety of other health benefits, and right now, these benefits are knocking on your door waiting to be discovered. Introduction to Keto Dieting. So, what is keto dieting? Keto dieting is considered a low-carb but a high-fat diet. When starting with the basics, you will be radically reducing the number of carbs you take in and switching it with fat. This in and of itself busts the myth that all fats are bad for you. Only some of them are, which will be explained. When you reduce the number of carbs you eat, you put your body into a position where it is forced to find another source of energy, and your body gains a superpower of burning fat instead. It also converts fat into ketones. This is the energy supplied for the brain to use. The body is an incredibly complex system, and the fact that it has more than just one primary energy-burning source, but can provide one of its own, is mind-blowing. Tip: Keto diet has proved to lower blood sugar and insulin levels as the individual's metabolism slowly starts to turn away from the carbs and lean on the fat and ketones. Introduction to ketosis. So your whole goal when taking part in the keto diet is to place your body into a state of ketosis, hence the name keto. But what is ketosis, and how exactly is it going to help you lose weight? It's an excellent question. The food you eat is generally your main source of energy. The foods are made up of 3 main nutrients that provide your body with the energy and different resources to function. They are known as carbs, fats, proteins. As you may have guessed, you need all 3 to survive, and a good balance of them to thrive. Whenever you eat a meal, your body starts by breaking down the carbs inside the food. Once that is complete, it will work on breaking down the fat and protein. An interesting fact is that the digestive process takes place in the entirety of one's gut, and it also takes in different parts of the gut. The harder it is to break food down, the further along in the gut it will be processed. Ketosis, in turn, is the natural state in your metabolism when your body runs out of carbs for use. Just like an alternative to sugar or flour in a recipe, your body will turn to fat instead. Your body breaks down the fats and turns them into an acid. This acid is called ketones, and they become the major source of energy for your brain. You will then see an entire shift in your metabolism, considering it is starting to become reliant on fat for energy. Your body will become a better fat-burning machine. What does this mean? You have a better chance of reaching your weight loss goals than if you don't cut out any of your carbs at all. Keto dieting is a method that focuses on using the body's engine to burn fat, instead of just solely focusing on calorie intake and daily exercise. Don't get me wrong, exercise is always good, but it is more of an add-on when it comes to weight loss. You exercise for a short period of the day, and what you eat and drink for the rest of the time determines your overall success. So how can someone achieve ketosis successfully? 2 answers: keto dieting, intermittent fasting. Now, we are discussing keto dieting in this chapter, and we'll deal with intermittent fasting in Chapter 2. All you need to know is that placing your body in ketosis is not as easy as people make it out to be. When it comes to keto, you will have to reduce your intake down to a measly 20 to 50 grams of carbs within a day. So, how on earth can you incorporate this into a busy lifestyle? With a plan. You will also be receiving a template idea as well as steps that you can take. You don't have to transition into a pure keto diet all at once. After all, slowly but surely make the transition necessary to get you where you want to be. Benefits of keto. But what if you are not fully convinced? What if you have some doubt about the effectiveness of keto, or perhaps you're not quite ready yet to cut out all your carbs? Cutting out certain foods takes a certain level of commitment, but also understanding what it can do for your life as a whole can make a world of a difference. So if you find yourself wading the murky waters of doubt, remember to revisit this chapter in this section. It is good to set reminders about why you were starting something in the very first place. Weight loss. This is undoubtedly one of the most popular reasons why people take on keto dieting. But weight loss in itself is perhaps not enough. What can weight loss do for you? Is it so important to adapt your food and lifestyle for the sake of shedding those extra pounds? Weight loss can decrease the risks of heart disease, increase mobility and reduce matters of pain, boost your mood, get better shut-eye, sleep, decrease the risk of several types of cancers, boost your insulin resistance, improve your self-esteem, lower blood pressure. To summarize, healthy weight loss can improve the quality of life. I say healthy because there is a flip side where too much weight loss can have the opposite effect. Your quality of life will certainly involve various other aspects. A great example would be having better sleep can cause you to have more energy. When you have more energy, you are more productive and fare better at work. When you fare better at work, you see more opportunities open in your career. Something as simple as weight loss can trigger a domino effect in a person's life, generally in a very positive direction. So, keto dieting can help with weight loss. What other benefits can it bring to your door? Keto dieting is also proven to improve a person's skin by reducing their acne symptoms. This is a result of the reduced carb intake. Carbohydrates have been shown to alter the balance within a person's gut bacteria, causing spikes in blood sugar. Much like a roller coaster, the blood sugar levels keep rising and falling at a rapid rate when a person digests processed and refined carbs. Therefore, cutting out carbs to a much smaller amount can boost the health of the skin. The irony remains on how strongly people will recommend lotions to be the cure-all when there are various other options for a person's overall skin health. Weight loss reduces the risk of cancers. In a world where cancer is becoming a more frequent and terrifying reality, we all want to take the necessary steps to reduce the chances of being one of the unfortunate. And research has discovered that the effects keto diets have had on people can help prevent, even at times treat, specific cancers. Another study has found that the keto diet is quite a complementary add-on to use while undergoing chemotherapy and radiation therapy for people who have certain cancers. Why? Well, keto dieting causes a certain amount of oxidative stress within the cancer cells in comparison to the normal cells. This causes the cancer cells to die. Another study in 2018 had shown that the keto diet reduces blood sugar. When this happens, complications regarding insulin are also lowered. However, it is important to note that a lot of these studies are limited, and more work needs to be done before the full potential benefits of ketogenic diets are discovered, specifically in cancer prevention as well as treatment. A person who follows a keto diet generally focuses on choosing healthy foods and fats such as avocado. When people take on these healthy foods, the keto diet has shown to have an effect of lowering the level of cholesterol a person has. And considering having prevalent cholesterol, this diet is a huge advantage. Another study has come to show that the ketones the body reproduces during the keto diet have also provided certain neuroprotective benefits. This means the brain and nerve cells can be strengthened. In short, your brain is better protected. Another potential advantage, although not set in stone quite yet, has come to show that ketosis can help reduce seizures people with epilepsy may have. Even the people who have not responded to other tactics have shown positive results when it comes to the keto diet. So the keto diet might have more than just use for weight loss, but it might slowly creep in and find its place within the medical world. Drawbacks of keto. Keto dieting can have a range of side effects, and not all of them are ideal. Again, just as has been mentioned before, there is no one-size-fits-all formula when it comes to matters of weight loss. Keto dieting is far from perfect, and there are just some matters you have to be aware of when undertaking this form of dieting. Deficiency. You have to work extra hard when it comes to nutrients. When you give up beans, fruits, whole grains, and vegetables, it can cause constipation and deficiencies. Therefore, extra work will have to be done, as well as consider drinking certain supplements. Otherwise, you might suffer from side effects that aren't supposed to happen. The best way to resolve this would be to plan a person's meals and take careful consideration of all the nutrients you need as well as how much you need daily. Keto flu. The keto flu is a term coined after the side effects a person tends to get when undergoing the ketogenic diet. Although it is not the actual flu, it is something you will have to be prepared for when walking into keto. You could experience similar symptoms when tackling intermittent fasting. Remember, these symptoms tend to appear within 2 to 7 days after you've started the diet and should last only a little while. If these symptoms do not recede within a week, you may take a look at your diet or stop the keto diet. What are some of the symptoms? Constipation, fatigue, irritability, headache, foggy brain, difficulty sleeping, nausea. So, what exactly instigates the keto flu? Should you be concerned if you have symptoms? Well, if you do decide to change your diet, don't feel too exasperated. Remember the following. 1. You do not have to buy expensive supplements from the internet. 2. Despite the name keto flu, you will not be developing any fever, and the symptoms do not tackle you to the ground. If you are feeling very sick, then it's certainly time to pay your doctor for a visit, as this is an indication that something else is happening. 3. Drink a lot of water. 4. Remember to eat more often. 5. Do not immediately give up the plan you have committed. You might have to endure a tough couple of days, but like all tough times, it will and should come to pass. You may even feel your energy levels return to normal, and you might even feel better than you did. 6. If all else fails, consider gradually easing your way into the diet like you would ease your way out of coffee. The cold turkey solution is most certainly not for everyone, and you won't get fined for taking a little bit of a different route than others might take. Remember that you want to focus on a nutritionally dense form of the meal when tackling keto dieting. Your idea, after all, would be to live a long and healthy life. Keto dieting is certainly one step closer to that. Trouble sticking to the plan. Although it is always easy to start with something, it is not quite the same when it comes to sticking it through. I picture this as someone taking on matters such as knitting. When starting, it is one stitch after the next. But once you are halfway through, the journey may seem dreary. The rules remain the same, but the improvement might be hard to keep you motivated. Having a restricted diet such as keto is very rigid, and a person should be careful not to stress too much about it. Finally, keto dieting does have a lot more rules in it than the average cut out sugar and exercise instead idea. People would both need to prepare a budget as well as a tracker to stick to their goals. Who is keto not made for? Keto dieting is not for everyone. This sad but true reality does mean that there are limitations. However, even if you fall under certain limitations, you will still benefit from learning about the different keto recipes as well as cutting out a lot, not all, of the carbs in your life. So if you have kidney damage, pregnant or currently nursing, type 1 diabetes, have pre-existing liver or pancreatic condition, undergone gallbladder removal, a high risk of heart disease, you should not even attempt the keto diet. Rules of keto dieting. So now that we have established what keto dieting is, what it can accomplish, the pros and cons, as well as those who should not participate in it, what exactly are the basic rules of keto? Your goal would be to keep your total carb content within 1 to 5% of all calories you are eating, but there are slightly looser versions of this diet. Instead of carbs, your fats should be replacing most of the carb content, and you should be eating around 60 to 80% of your total caloric intake. Finally, 10 to 30% of your calorie intake should consist of proteins. When you reduce carbs to such a radical degree, you are going to place your body under ketosis, which is your exact goal when it comes to the ketogenic diet. Different types of keto. However, there is more than just one form of keto dieting. It means you also have a couple of choices on how you plan to go about implementing the different ideas and lifestyles you might have. Although all the different types of keto dieting are based around the same goal, each one has a slightly different approach. Strict keto, normally used for epilepsy treatment. People who take on a very strict version of keto normally do so based on medical reasons, such as treating epilepsy. It is sometimes called the therapeutic keto diet and was created in the 1920s to help treat seizures. This version of the diet also allows for the lowest amounts of carbs, therefore it is seen as the strictest. Where 90% of a person's calories will come from fat, only 6% will come from protein, and 4% should come from carbs. However, there are considerable side effects for people who follow this diet, very specifically children, which would include weight loss, growth problems, constipation, and anorexia. This is likely from the limit on protein intake and carbs. A person is also at a higher risk of developing kidney stones, struggling with low blood sugar, and hypercalciuria, where there are high levels of calcium in the person's blood. This version is also the toughest one to stick to unless you want to treat your epilepsy, under the supervision of your doctor. This form of dieting would not be recommended. Just don't push yourself like this unless you have to. The standard keto diet. The most common approach to keto would involve 75% of your food coming from fat, 20% of it be consumed as protein, and 5% from carbs. This means you should normally limit your total carb intake to around 20 to 30 grams in a day. This is the most common diet people tend to follow and best for those who want to accelerate their weight loss and access various other forms of health benefits. Targeted keto. This is where you follow a keto diet until 30 or 45 minutes before a deep exercise session, where you plan to eat around 25 grams of carbs. The main idea behind this would be to provide your body with just enough fuel to work out as you need to, and then proceed to return to a state of ketosis after you have cooled down. A person should then choose carbs that are easily digested, such as white rice or white bread, but make sure not to add any more calories to your daily total. You will simply be redistributing them. Studies published in 2019 in the Journal of Sports Medicine had shown that the 28 days of a keto diet have even helped to boost the endurance of an athlete. These benefits were specifically spotted during the short-duration, high-intensity forms of exercise. It may not be the go-to approach for all athletes. This is certainly best for people who intend to exercise on a very regular basis. Specifically, those who exercise involving weights, muscle building, or high-intensity exercises such as swimming, running, or playing tennis for a couple of hours on end. If you are hitting the gym at a moderate pace, then this strategy might not cut it for you. However, it is best not to try this diet form until you follow the standard keto diet for at least a whole month or two. You are training your body to be keto adaptive. Your body is now used to turning fats into fuels and is more willing to switch between carbs and ketosis than when you started from scratch. High-protein keto diet. This diet form is ideal for a bodybuilder. It focuses on upping your protein intake by 30% of your calories, keeping your carbs at 5% and your fat at 65% total. Your main source of protein should come from both plants and animals, if at all possible. This dieting strategy is perfect for those wanting to protect and build their overall muscle mass, so it would be ideal for bodybuilders and, important, is a great sign for older people who need to focus on preventing muscle breakdown. Anyone who shows signs of any kind of protein deficiency should certainly switch to this diet, struggling with muscle loss or thinning hair. However, people who have kidney issues need to be careful and not increase their overall protein intake. Otherwise, they may experience a waste buildup in the blood if they have too much protein. Tip: generally, if you are a healthy person, you can get away with eating a little more protein than the standard recommended amount. Eating too much is not inherently dangerous unless you have a medical condition. For example, having salt with your food is not dangerous for the average person, but people who struggle with high blood sugar need to practice extra caution. So high-protein keto might just not be right for you if you are busy following a diet for therapeutic reasons. The reason why protein is limited when it comes to epilepsy is for the high ketone levels. So, although protein may not kick you out of ketosis if you have a lot, it could lower the number of ketones you have in your blood. The cyclical keto diet. This is a diet form where you cycle in and out of keto. It means you normally stay on a diet for 5 days, having 1 or 2 days with extra carbs, and return to your standard keto diet. The point of this diet is to make it easier to follow. Every 5 or 6 days, a person can then reward themselves to have some of the carbs that they have been restricting in their entirety. Although there is no exact protocol on how much carbs you should have on that day, it is best not to eat too much. Otherwise, your body will struggle to go into ketosis on your keto days. This might even be better if you combine this with intermittent fasting, as it can kick your body back into keto a whole lot faster. This is a diet form, however, intended for people who might have a really tough time sticking to keto overall. It could be helpful for those who just want a break and have some carbs. After all, keto dieting is not as easy as some would make it out to be. The biggest concern would be the promotion of carb binging. Furthermore, if your body is used to turning fat into fuel, then if you start to add carb days, it can slow down the benefits and weight loss results. It can cause fluctuations in a person's body water and can lead to dizziness. Anyone who suffers from cardiac conditions should certainly not consider this dieting form. The lazy keto diet. Considered the easiest version, the purpose of the lazy keto is very much the same as the one above. For some people, keto might be a little too complicated. All you need to do is track your carbs in lazy keto. You should still see very similar results in the lazy keto as with the regular keto. Your main priority would be to keep your carb intake low enough and don't go too overboard with protein. Generally, staying below 50 grams a day is best if you want to stay in ketosis. This is best for people who do not want to bother keeping track of a person's total calories, fat, and protein. And the same people who need to avoid keto generally should also just avoid this approach. Lazy keto, however, can be dangerous if you follow a keto diet sometimes and sometimes don't. When it comes to keto dieting, it's all or nothing. You are either in a state of ketosis or you are not. If people do not go all the way and straddle along the lines, like the cyclical where you are purposeful on your keto days and your carb days, it can cause weight gain and increased blood lipid. Mediterranean Keto. For anyone wondering, this approach is sticking to the standard keto macro amounts, but focusing on the Mediterranean diet involving a whole lot of fatty fish and olive oil. A person will be focusing on the quality of fats that they are eating, which in turn is a more sustainable, long-term approach to the long-term diet. Mediterranean elements focus on high nutrient-dense foods that are unprocessed. It is the healthiest choice for keto, and if you enjoy salmon and sardines, then you won't be struggling too much. The standard Mediterranean diet focuses on whole grains and fruits, which you would add to the keto plan. It means that the risks you would gain are minimal. If you want to focus on the Mediterranean, you will want to incorporate rest after eating, social time in your meals, and get a healthy dose of regular physical activity to enjoy. Provided later in this chapter will be a list of keto-friendly and not so keto-friendly foods to be aware of. Remember that it is best to add this into your meal plans gradually, as it will both benefit your body and your wallet. Having to empty and replace stocks of food can become quite costly if it is all done at once. But now it is time to take a look at the second form of dieting, one that also focuses on placing your body in a state of ketosis, but is known to do so at a faster rate. However, this tactic is also certainly not for everyone, or you could decide to combine it with keto. This would be called intermittent fasting. Chapter 2. Introduction to Intermittent Fasting. Whenever I hear the words intermittent fasting, I think of a clock. The clock has different shades on it. Blue is the amount of time you're allowed to eat, whereas red is the window of time that you are only allowed to chug down water and avoid food at all costs. Intermittent fasting does not involve the foods you eat. However, to help your journey and avoid any malnutrition, it is recommended to eat nutrient-dense foods during your eating window. Intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is an eating plan. It is where you switch between fasting and eating on a specific schedule. Unlike most of the different dieting trends that exist, fasting is perhaps one of the oldest practices in the world. Many philosophers, doctors, and experts have recommended fasting. However, not everyone is built for extended forms of fasting, and depending on the extent of one's fasting, exceeding the past 3 days of fasting may be required to be done under the supervision of a medical professional. When it comes to intermittent fasting, it generally extends to 12 hours to 24 hours, depending on the schedule you would like to choose. You will be placing the rules of when you eat only during a very specific time frame. For instance, you might choose to fast for 14 hours a day and eat for 12 hours. Or the most popular intermittent fasting period would be to fast for 16 hours and eat for 8 hours. The majority of a person's fasting period tends to extend through the night when a person is asleep. Mark Mattson, a Johns Hopkins neuroscientist, had been studying intermittent fasting for the last 25 years and has claimed that a person's body is designed to go without a certain amount of food for many hours. A person should be able to go without sustenance for several hours, to days, to perhaps even longer. Taking a look at history, people had to go long stretches without eating, as it took a good long while to gather berries and nuts, as well as hunt for game. Merely 50 years ago, life had also been radically different. People were not glued to their desks and televisions, and people weren't eating at 11 p.m. because they had gone to bed at that time. People also spent a whole lot more time outdoors, both in regards to work as well as playing. This certainly includes children, and I just have to think of my childhood to remember that I spent a good long while playing outside. But with the invention of the internet, the world of work and the entertainment that is available 24/7 has significantly slowed our movement. Now all of us tend to stay awake until late hours of the night, and sitting and snacking have become a very common phenomenon. That means people are at an increased risk of obesity as well as type 2 diabetes, other illnesses, and heart diseases. This is where intermittent fasting comes in and shatters the unhealthy routine we often find ourselves stuck in. How does intermittent fasting work? There is more than just one tactic to practice intermittent fasting, IF. They are all based on choosing specific periods where you will fast and when you will eat. Generally, people pick the schedule that works best with their lifestyle. A good example would be someone busy in the mornings. They might decide to start their fast at 8 p.m., fast for 16 hours, skip breakfast, and eat their lunch at 12 p.m., effectively breaking their fast. According to Matson, the body will start burning fat after they run out of sugar stores. This is commonly referred to as metabolic switching, which, as you know, places your body in a state of ketosis. Intermittent fasting is a real reversal of the normal eating habits most of us live by within our waking hours. Generally, a person eats breakfast, lunch, and supper with snacks mixed in between. Furthermore, the majority of people are not exercising, which means people are not using all the calories they are consuming. When taking on intermittent fasting, the body will have burned through the calories of a person's last meal and start to burn fat. Insulin explained. Before going any further, to fully understand this benefit, let's quickly dive into insulin, the topic highly spoken about but never quite properly explained. Insulin happens to the hormone in your body to control your level of blood sugar and metabolism. This is the process that occurs when your body is going to turn the food that you eat into the energy that you need to burn. Your pancreas is the one that creates the insulin and releases it into your bloodstream. Insulin helps your body to use the sugar for the necessary needs inside the body and then store the rest. So after you have eaten, your intestines will be breaking down the carbs from the food you have eaten into the glucose. This glucose is a type of sugar, and once it is in your bloodstream, your blood sugar level starts to rise. Your pancreas is the organ that fits snugly behind your stomach. It releases insulin to control the amount of glucose entering your bloodstream. The simplest explanation is that insulin works much like the heating and cooling system, where if the temperatures rise and fall, the system will release cool or warm air. It all depends on what is needed. Insulin is also responsible for moving the glucose into your cells, and this is where your blood sugar levels will then be moving back to normal. Normally, if you have low blood sugar, your insulin will release the glucose into the cells and push your blood sugar levels back to normal. As your blood sugar starts to sink, a cluster of cells within your pancreas is released. This other hormone is called glucagon. The glucagon helps your liver to break down the sugar that is stored, also called glycogen, which gets released into your bloodstream. And insulin and glucagon take turns in releasing the glucose and glucagon to maintain a healthy level of blood sugar. So, what happens if insulin does not function as it should? This is when your system and your pancreas breaks down, and you could form either one of the two types of diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease that can start in childhood when your immune system will go about attacking and demolishing your beta cells inside of the pancreas. These beta cells inside of your pancreas are the ones that make insulin. Type 2 diabetes can affect both children and adults, and this disease happens over a certain time. Your pancreas struggles to release the insulin, which makes it hard for your cells to use insulin. This is commonly referred to as insulin resistance. This is very common with people struggling with their weight overall. When a person struggles with insulin, the blood sugar rises. If a person has an extended time where they struggle with the blood sugar, it can damage their blood vessels and important organs such as the heart, kidneys, and eyes. When your body does not use glucose properly, it can make you feel very tired. Now that you understand why insulin resistance is so dangerous, intermittent fasting has proved to be a helpful ally, reducing the amount of insulin resistance as well as decreasing the risk of gaining type 2 diabetes. Oxidative stress. When a body struggles with oxidative stress, it places a person one step closer to aging as well as having chronic diseases. It involves all the various unstable molecules called free radicals. These free radicals will react with other molecules such as DNA and protein, which is going to damage them. Benefits of intermittent fasting. No one is going to turn their back on good foods for certain periods unless they know there is a good reward. So, what can intermittent fasting do for you? Weight loss is an obvious start, and having taken a look at the previous chapter, you do understand everything that weight loss is capable of doing for you. But what else is there? When you stop eating for a certain period of time, your body will make certain changes. For example, your body will change the hormone levels inside of your body to make the fat more accessible. Your body makes burning fat a whole lot easier, and other changes occur when you are fasting. Your insulin levels are going to drop at a rapid rate, which also aids the fat-burning process. Your human growth hormones are suddenly going to grow at a much faster rate. This also helps with the fat-burning process, the gaining of muscle, and various other benefits. Your gene expression will be influenced. This means that you will have beneficial changes to your genes that work concerning protection against the disease as well as longevity. Intermittent fasting can also play a role in the reduction of one's insulin resistance. It can help to lower a person's risk of getting type 2 diabetes. So, how does intermittent fasting help you? Beneficial for your heart health. One of the world's biggest killers is heart disease. Intermittent fasting has been shown to improve a wide variety of risk factors, which would include blood pressure, blood sugar levels, total and LDL cholesterol, and inflammatory markers. However, the total effects caused by fasting and heart health still need to be studied in depth. Kickstart the cellular repair processes. Whenever someone fasts, especially for the long term, the body starts a process of waste removal called autophagy. This would involve the different cells getting broken down, and it would be metabolized. The body would help to remove a whole lot of its broken down cells. Could help in the prevention of cancer. Cancer is one of the world's greatest enemies that exist in the world. People have been fighting cancer, and although there is no cure, there are ways and tricks to reduce the risk of it. Fasting would lead to a reduction of the risk of cancer, and perhaps even prevent cancer. However, more studies still need to be done for this reality to be confirmed. Added benefits for your brain. Intermittent fasting can reduce inflammation, oxidative stress, insulin resistance, and blood sugar levels. Fasting also increases the levels of a brain hormone called the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. BDNF deficiency has some links to depression and other kinds of brain problems. Animal studies have shown that intermittent fasting would protect the brain from damage due to strokes, although more studies still need to be done. It may have a whole lot of benefits for brain health, which would increase the growth of neurons and add a layer of protection from damage. May help with the prevention of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is known as the world's most common neurodegenerative diseases. At this current moment, there is no cure available for the disease, so therefore it is critical in preventing it from taking hold in the first place. Fasting has shown in both rats and mice to delay the onset of Alzheimer's as well as have a reduction in its overall severity. Could extend your overall life. One of the biggest excitements that come with intermittent fasting could be the ability it has to extend a person's lifespan. Studies had come to show that intermittent fasting had extended the lifespan of rodents in a very similar way that it had done to calorie restriction. These effects had been very dramatic and very promising. Although these studies had specifically applied to animals, it is quite promising nonetheless in the applications for people. Furthermore, given the already proven benefits of metabolism and overall health markers, it would make a whole lot of sense that you could live a longer and healthier life. Intermittent fasting is a very popular form of weight loss, but the benefits involving fasting are extended long before that. Cons of fasting. Intermittent fasting is not the perfect formula for weight loss, and fasting is not for everyone. To abstain from food for an extended period is tough, especially when people were suffering from cravings, headaches, or perhaps fatigue. Overeating. Because of the way intermittent fasting is scheduled, it could cause a person to overeat on the days that a person was allowed to eat. And because the meal size and the frequency are not restricted, it could cause people to overcompensate for the previous fasting days. Could reduce the level of physical activity. Another common con of fasting could lead to a reduction in your overall energy. This means that your level of physical activity could be limited. Depending on your level of physical activity during the day, you might find yourself getting lethargic or fatigued. So as an athlete, it is recommended not to participate in intermittent fasting. Could make you moody and tired. Although the term hangry might not be found in a dictionary, it is certainly a fitting reality when someone is hungry. Because intermittent fasting can make you feel a whole lot moodier and tired than usual, it means that you could struggle with lower body temperatures, lower levels of energy, and a decrease in the overall hormone function. Could lead to an eating disorder. If you already struggle with the eating habits, then fasting is a no-go for you. But you also need to practice a certain level of caution with your mind in regards to fasting. You might think, the longer I fast, the more weight I could lose. But that is circular and damaging thinking that could cause harm if you decide to extend your fast for way too long and cause you to form an eating disorder. Malnutrition, if one is not cautious. People often forget to eat the right nutrition during their eating period, which would lead to extended problems when a person fasts. A good indication that you might not be eating right is if you suffer from side effect symptoms for more than 2 weeks. So, it might mean you don't have to stop intermittent fasting, but a revamping of your overall diet. You just need to listen to your body after all. Different types of intermittent fasting. Habits are always a good thing, and so is consistency. The reality remains that there are also different types of intermittent fasting, which means that you can choose one which best suits your lifestyle. If need be, you can also rotate between them as there are no hard or fast rules that come with fasting, except what you can consume during your fasting periods. To start with, let's begin with the 5-2 fasting method. This is specifically recommended for people who want to eat normally for the majority of the time and partake in fasting the other 2 days, normally by eating around 500 to 600 calories within a day. You can choose the days you want to fast and the days you want to eat normally. Generally, these short bouts of fasting work well because one day of suffering can allow you to look forward to the next day when you can finally have your normal meals again. It might work easier for people rather than cutting back on the entire week. However, some people are against this form of fasting, as you might struggle with a whole lot of endurance exercises, so it might make things more difficult than easier. Time-restricted fasting. This is the more traditional and well-known form of intermittent fasting. You will choose an eating window every day, which could leave around a 14 to 16-hour fasting period. For hormonal concerns, it is recommended that women should stick to around 14 hours of fasting daily. For example, you could have an eating window between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It works especially well for those who eat early dinners and spend most of the time fasting while asleep anyways. However, if your schedule constantly changes, then you could find that the daily periods of fasting could not be for you. Overnight fasting. This is a tactic of 12 hours of fasting. You can choose to stop eating meals at around 7 p.m. and have breakfast around 7 a.m. Autophagy normally does not happen during the 12-hour mark, but it will give someone very mild cellular effects. So in essence, it might not give you some of the top benefits that intermittent fasting tends to offer. However, it is the easiest one to implement, especially if you are not up to skipping meals and simply cutting out the bedtime snack if you happen to eat one. Eat, stop, eat. This tactic means you commit 1 or 2 24 hours within a week where you fast, and then you completely pretend that it never actually happened and you continue to eat responsibly. This is the main idea formed by the author Brad Pillen. Going back in the way that you would normally eat means that you won't binge because you have just fasted or restricted yourself to an extreme diet. With this occasional fasting, you could combine it with some weight training to receive the best weight loss benefits. It is meant to be easier and more enjoyable than being overly restrictive on yourself. Whole day fasting. This is when you eat only once a day. Some people will decide to only eat dinner and then only eat at the very next dinner. With matters such as whole day fasting, it is essentially a 24-hour fast. The advantage? It is really difficult to eat a whole day's worth of calories within a limited space of 4 to 8 hours. But that means you are at a higher risk of not getting all the nutrients your body needs. This is also a very tough form of diet to stick to, and you might be really hungry by the time dinner comes along. It means that you might not choose ideal caloric choices, which in turn can lead to great discomfort in eating, massive insulin spikes, and even affect one's ability to sleep if you are an excessive coffee drinker. Generally a coping method for anyone undertaking this form of fasting. Alternate day fasting. This fasting method combined with perhaps the time-restricted fasting is recommended for older people. Why? Because restricting the hours every second day and returning to normal eating the next can allow the metabolism and body to fully recover all its nutrients. For a body that might have more underlying issues and struggles, it is ideal to set up that rest period for yourself and still receive a whole lot of benefits of fasting. Other people might keep their calories to around 500 during their fasting days and continue to eat normally on the eating days. This is a very popular approach to weight loss, as studies regarding overweight adults show that alternate day fasting can result in a significant reduction in the body mass, weight, total cholesterol, and more. If you're worried about feeling hungry within your fasting days, studies have shown that people also feel more satisfied with their diet using this fasting method after 4 weeks. However, after 8 weeks, a person might never really feel full. It just depends on how your body reacts to it overall. Choose your day fasting. This is a more adventurous approach to intermittent fasting where you choose the days best suited for it. It could simply be every other day or once a week, whatever floats your boat. Keep in mind that this approach is very adaptable to an ever-changing lifestyle, but it is a looser approach. This means the benefits involved might be milder in comparison to others. Chapter 3. The Fuel Source. To appreciate what you are doing or why you should be taking on keto dieting and IF, taking a look at the biology, how your body functions with fuel sources, is the best way to get this journey kick-started. Understanding the body's fuel source. We all know that to survive, we need to eat food and drink water. However, your body's health is determined by the types of foods you eat as well as the amount of water you drink. What happens in your body when you eat, and why is the type of fuel so important? To start with, our body's ability to run, swim, and lift that heavy box in the corner is all based on how well our bodies can extract the energy from the food we have eaten. Of all the potential fuel sources, the 3 primary ones are protein, fats, and carbs. Each one follows a different metabolic path inside your body, but they all ultimately give out carbon dioxide, water, and chemical energy often called adenosine triphosphate, otherwise known as ATP. ATP should be considered as a high-energy source and analogous to a battery, wherein energy can be stored. Whenever you find yourself needing that energy, whether it is to breathe, cycle 100 miles, or pay a visit to the bathroom, your body uses up the ATP molecules. ATP is the only energy molecule that can give your muscle fibers the necessary energy to provide the very necessary muscle contractions. Creatine phosphate, CP, are a small number of molecules that are stored within the cells. This is another compound filled with a lot of energy that can be mobilized at a rapid rate. It helps the body to fuel short but explosive exertions. As you can imagine, this could be when a person exercises. Whenever physical activity occurs, the body needs to replace both the ATP and CP to maintain its ability to keep moving. The food that we eat is meant to resupply the total potential energy which the body needs to continue functioning as it should. It comes in the form of fat, protein, and carbs. The body is also known to store the fuels in a form that can immediately supply the body with fuel, and this would be called glycogen. Glycogen can be converted into glucose, which in turn the body can use as fuel. The glycogen is normally stored in a person's liver, and on average, the liver can store around 1,800 to 2,000 calories worth of energy. This should be enough to fuel 90 to 120 minutes of continuous physical activity. So if you have ever felt like you hit a wall during the exercise, it is highly likely that your body ran out of glycogen and would then start switching out to fats to fuel the body. Understanding carbs. Carbs are one of the most popular and common fuel sources around. Fruits, vegetables, bread, cakes, cookies, and more can all be filed under carbs. Your favorite noodles or pasta dish, the biscuit you might have snatched to fill you up in the morning, and even the apple you have been eyeing for an hour are all within the carb family. However, considering an apple is a carb and a cake is also a carb, are they not the same? Not really. Carbs are not created equally, and the carbs you eat have different reactions all inside of your body. To start with, there are 3 different types of carbs. These would be sugar, fiber, and starches. Carbs are also labeled to be either simple or complex. The way it is determined is just how quickly a person's body can absorb and digest sugar. Simple carbs. These are digested very quickly, which in turn can result in big bursts of glucose spread into the bloodstream. That is why a person can often feel a rush of new energy after eating a chocolate bar. However, this burst of energy is often short-lived, and a person can crash when this burst of energy is depleted. These all tend to come from simple sugars or added sugars, and are often the cause of weight gain. These sugars also lack fiber, minerals, and vitamins, thus not providing a lot of good sustenance for the body to use. Examples of simple carbs would be candy, soda, table sugar, syrups, and more. Complex carbs. On the other hand, these carbs are digested a little slower and supply a more steady and versatile amount of glucose into your bloodstream. Complex carbs are far healthier and a better food choice than others. Examples of complex carbs would be starchy vegetables, whole grain fiber, and legumes. Any processed grains, such as white rice and white flour, have had many of their nutrients and fiber stripped away. They also lack the B vitamins and other nutrients, unless they have been marked as enriched. However, if you were to eat unrefined whole grains, you would be supplying your body with vital nutrients, and your body will also be enjoying the fiber. Fiber allows you to feel fuller and clean up your digestive system. So, why exactly do you normally need carbs? Your body tends to break the carbs down into the simple sugar which gets absorbed into the bloodstream. When the level of sugar keeps rising in your body, your pancreas should release the insulin to move the sugar from the blood into cells and maintain a good balance inside of you. The carbs in processed foods are often the guilty factor in your blood sugar levels, allowing it to rise faster than other foods can cause. If you are healthy, then the carbs will provide a well-balanced level of sugar for your body to use as energy. But the moment you struggle with your blood sugar levels is an immediate indication that your body has trouble with the creation of insulin. Understanding ketones. The body is a truly fascinating and complex machine that functions better than any computer ever created. This is also in regards to the body's fuel source, where if one fuel source fails, another can step in to take its place. Carbs are one of the primary fuel sources for the body, so when you cut them out of your diet, your body replaces them with ketones. Ketones are a very specific type of chemically designed to break down fats. Your body will generally make use of this chemical when undergoing a fast, having long stretches of exercise, or when you cut down your carbs. You can always have some low levels of ketones in your blood without having too much of an issue. However, the coin does flip if you have high levels of ketones in your blood. For instance, if you are a diabetic and you do not have enough insulin in your body, then your liver will start to use the fat for energy. But as the ketones keep building up in the blood, they can become acidic. If they become acidic, it can lead to diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA. It is life-threatening. So, does that mean you should stay away from putting your body in a state of ketosis? No. Ketosis buildup normally occurs if you have type 1 diabetes, and it is anyways recommended not to practice fasting or keto dieting if this is the case. If you only have type 2 diabetes, you are at a lower risk, but you should also be on the lookout for signs of DKA. What are some of the symptoms of having ketones as your fuel source? You should look out for having a fruity breath, needing to visit the restroom a lot, excessive stomach pain, excessive fatigue, more than usual, fainting, confusion, changes in breathing, high blood sugar levels. Stages of fasting. All right, so it is always best to play it safe when a person is diabetic, but ketones, if not altogether dangerous, when practicing safe keto dieting and fasting. So what exactly happens to your body if you decide to fast? Your body goes through different phases since the moment you ate your last meal. Depending on the length of time you fast also depends on the benefits you receive as well as the amount of energy you use. For example, if you do light exercise during a fast, it might speed up the process of your body using up all the glycogen. For the first 4 hours after a meal, your blood sugar will continue to remain high. Your body is filled with insulin as it is busy converting the sugar into glycogen. However, after the spike depletes, you will start to feel hungry again. This is why people eating high-carb foods are hooked on eating a lot of them. The second stage is between 4 to 8 hours of a meal. Your blood sugar levels start to drop and move into a normal range. Then, within 8 to 12 hours, your blood sugar is normal, and within 12 to 18 hours, your body will start turning into a partial ketosis state. This is when your body is working on burning the fat instead of the sugars and glycogen which it has run out of. After 18 to 28 hours after a meal, your body will be in a full state of ketosis and, as a result, keep burning body fat. This is why even after an extended period, it is still relatively safe. Within the stage of 28 to 48 hours, your body will be going into autophagy, also called self-repair. Any damaged cells in your body are broken down and will be converted into energy. You will also see this impact on your skin. Going through autophagy would be beneficial in preventing conditions such as Alzheimer's. Within 48 to 60 hours, your growth hormone is much higher as it focuses on muscle repair and growth. From 60 to 72 hours after a meal, your insulin levels are completely normal, ideal for those struggling with pre-diabetes. From 72 to 144 hours, your immune cells will be ignited to start regenerating at a much faster rate. And within 144 to 288 hours, 12 days, you will no longer feel the need to eat food 3 times a day, and you will have fundamental changes in your understanding of food. However, extended fasting needs to be under the constant supervision of a medical professional, and people need to be aware that you are busy with a fast. Fasting for extended periods is risky and should not be practiced regularly. Even fasting 24 hours is recommended at least once or twice a week, but no more. What happens to your body if you practice keto dieting? Keto dieting is the slower version of the fasting tactic, and people who really cannot go without food might find this is a more handy method. However, the experience of keto dieting is slightly different from intermittent fasting, considering that you are still consuming food during this time. To start with, your very first week of keto dieting is not going to be your greatest, as your body is starting to swap out an energy source. If you have seen anyone cleaning and replacing hardware or appliances, it can take days sometimes and cause a slowdown in traffic or use. Your body is focusing on ramping up the production of ketones. You may experience brain fogginess, fatigue, and occasional headaches, the infamous keto flu that we've mentioned before. This, however, should clear up in a few days. Then it has been said that you might experience a whoosh. What is a whoosh? It is when you experience a huge amount of weight all within the first few weeks. However, this is not just fat, it is also water weight. The whoosh can cause great discouragement because your weight loss rate will not continue, and people may believe that it is not working again. However, slow and steady does win the race, and hanging on just a little while longer is all that is truly needed. However, your weight loss will be easier, considering that your body is using the fat stores for your energy. Your body will also have less insulin in its bloodstream. You will not be feeling hunger pangs as frequently. Your metabolic health will have been improved, and you will be training your body to easily tap into the fuel stores that have been provided. Your body will not hit the panic button, and you won't be feeling the excessive need to stock up once you are feeling down. You will also notice a decrease in inflammation, so you won't feel as bloated and thinner throughout the process of keto. However, you will have to focus very hard on staying hydrated and drinking a lot more water than usual. Why? Because your kidneys will be working harder, and cutting out carbs will cut out a whole lot of the water in your body. If you are dehydrated, you may experience constipation, headache, nausea, cramps, and irritability. You are also at a higher risk of kidney stones and gout, which is why if you have a risk of kidney disease, you should stay clear of the keto diet. You might also experience some gut distress because you are cutting a lot of major food groups. This means that the gut bacteria won't have access to all the bacteria to keep it healthy and balanced. Fiber is important to gut health after all. So now you know the inner workings of what exactly happens when you fast and when you take on keto dieting. But what happens if you decide to combine the two? If you want to speed up the process of ketosis, do not fall within the categories listed, diabetes type, pregnant, etc., and you are up for the challenge, then it is certainly something you can consider. However, keep in mind, keto dieting should not be permanent, and the combination of the two is a short-term practice as well. When apart, you can continue to practice intermittent fasting inevitably, but when combined, you are at a higher risk of malnourishment. Chapter 4. Combining the Two. All right, it is your choice. You can choose between taking on a diet, cutting out carbs, and placing your body in a constant state of ketosis. Or you can maintain a normal but healthy diet and at certain periods of the day, simply abstain from eating, placing your body in a state of ketosis again. All in all, both are great weight loss techniques designed to use the body's natural means of fat burning to get things kick-started. So what is your overall choice in regards to the two? Do you want to do keto dieting? Do you want to try your hand at intermittent fasting? Or do you want to take a swing at both? That, after all, is an entirely possible idea, one which can act a little more as a super boost when it comes to your health and weight loss goals. However, both are relatively tough to take on individually. So how will you cope when you decide to both fast and be on keto? Why would you want to do two diets at once? For one, practicing IF while on the keto diet can help your body reach that state of ketosis at a much more rapid rate. IF and keto both focus on the key benefit of shifting your body to start burning body fat instead of the traditional carbs for energy. Are you up for that challenge? Would you lose more weight? Will it result in you receiving a whole lot more side effects? Is it dangerous? These are all very pertinent questions to ask yourself when combining a carb-restricted diet and limiting the time that you can eat. The truth about combining keto and intermittent fasting. Because of their distinct similarities yet different approaches, combining the two dieting methods is not difficult. This is especially true if you are already used to keto dieting, as that does take a longer learning curve than its fellow intermittent fasting counterpart. Intermittent fasting can be combined with various kinds of diets, simply because it counts the hours and not the calories. So intermittent fasting is a very flexible form of dieting. So the greater concern would be to focus on your keto diet when you combine the two. Again, don't just jump into this icy pool of dieting. Rather, ease into it. Spare yourself a lot of grief that comes boxed up in the shape of side effects by starting with one diet first and adding the next one once you have gotten used to it. It is generally recommended for you to start with keto first if you intend to combine the two, because keto dieting does take more effort and work. Not only will you have to gradually work on changing your recipes, restocking your cupboard, and dealing with cravings, your whole metabolism will be changing. So give yourself at least a week or two of keto for any possible keto flu effects to pass, before adding intermittent fasting. Once you add intermittent fasting, do so gradually by starting your schedule with a 12 to 10 hour period for your eating window, basing it on your overall schedule, and keep working your way up to that long fast. If you are an avid snacker, for example, you will want to start cutting out those snacks, even if they are keto-friendly, during the time that you may be practicing fasting. So, what would a day of keto and intermittent fasting look like? If you decide to go for a 12-hour eating window and focus on 25 grams of carbs in a day, here is an example that you could follow. Start your morning at 7 a.m. with some cheese and stuffed peppers. 10 a.m., you decide to have a half cup of berries and eat 4 ounces of plain Greek yogurt. 12 p.m., you enjoy a great salad stuffed tuna with avocado boats. 3 p.m., you decide to snack on some raw veggies with 2 tablespoons of tzatziki. 5:30 p.m., you finish your supper with steak, cauliflower, and roasted veggies. 7 p.m., you have 1 to 2 cups of popcorn. And you end the day simply drinking a whole lot of water and have around 30 grams of carbs in a day. Remember that you are suffering from the high possibility of dehydration, so keep water with you and be prepared to visit the bathroom perhaps a little more often than usual, because a way to compensate for hunger and cravings would be to help yourself to water. This is a good way to flush your system, but don't go flipping the switch of extremes and drink too much water. It is also, unfortunately, a very likely possibility if one is not careful. Another example of keto and intermittent fasting could be having an 8-16 hour ratio, where you eat for 8 hours and fast for 16. At 7 a.m., you have yourself a great steamy cup of black coffee or green tea. 10 a.m., you break your fast by having keto macadamia bread, sauerkraut, and ricotta cheese. 12 p.m., you have around 4 to 6 ounces of salmon that have greens and a half an avocado with it. 3 p.m., you have some almond yogurt that is unsweetened and grainless granola. 5:30 p.m., you have some shrimp, sunflower seeds, and cauliflower rice. 7 p.m., you finish your day with some nice herbal tea. Can the combination help me lose weight? A consensus among a lot of RDs has claimed that keto with IF will indeed help you reach a state of ketosis a whole lot faster. It does mean that it could lead to greater amounts of weight loss. Adding IF to your diet journey will boost the effects of your keto diet, as they both involve an increase of ketones in your body. However, the state of ketosis will be different from person to person. You might suffer severely from the keto flu, or you might not feel a thing. You might not lose as much weight as your buddy did either, or you might have lost more. Either way, it does mean that you will have to add another diet on top of the other one you are already practicing. It does add a certain level of pressure and endurance that not a lot of people can often handle. It is best if you do not attempt this without the advice from a doctor and a little bit of supervision from friends or family around you, not because it is excessively dangerous, but because they can help walk you through a very difficult journey. How should I try this combo? All those who are recommended not to try intermittent fasting or keto dieting are already excluded from combining both, kind of like adding insult to injury. However, this is quite a heavy task for just about anyone to undertake. So how do you know that combining the two is the right move for you? Well, consider this. If you want to shed pounds at a rapid rate, then combining the keto and IF would be perfect for you. It all does depend on your pre-existing health conditions. For example, if you do have type 2 diabetes, you probably will benefit from a keto diet and IF, allowing a reduction of medications. However, do not start the combo until you have gotten a medical professional's opinion. The last thing you want is to exaggerate a problem you are trying to fix. With professional guidance, you can avoid a whole row of issues. What are some of the side effects you might face? Everyone wants to hear the good news and see the benefits, but the side effects can help paint the entire picture and give you a realistic idea of what you are walking into. Being prepared will certainly allow you to brace for impact, rather than get knocked out by the wrecking ball when the side effects rear their ugly head. Do you end up with double side effects? In theory, if life worked like simple math, and Sammy bought 50 watermelons, for some or other reason, technically you should. If you consider that you will be placing two together, you might be facing a combination of the two side effects listed. It could be constipation, nausea, fatigue, etc. A very undesirable combination. But in reality, the biggest problem of combining the two diets would simply be the high level of commitment involved. To be honest, it is not going to be easy, and the majority of people walking down this road are probably going to drop out. Intermittent fasting takes a whole lot of commitment, keto dieting even more so. When you add the two together, it's double the work. Being able to maintain narrow eating is hard. You are implementing a lot of rules for yourself to follow, and now you are dictating the time you are allowed to eat as well. The best tip when it comes to this is to build it all up gradually, but also to plan in detail what you are going to eat and when you are going to eat it. If you are a planner and a stickler for details, you will find this easier. But if you are not, then start your journey slowly. The raw truth? Start by simply learning how to plan your meals, regardless of whether they are keto or not, and stick to it for at least 2 to 4 weeks. Then, they start by cutting out sugary drinks. Out of all the different junk foods, sugar drinks are the worst because they contain absolutely no nutrition. Once you have cut out the unhealthy drinks, start cutting out the unhealthy snacks and limit your takeout to once a week. Take a good long look in your kitchen and pantry and start building up a list of keto ingredients you will need. Pick 3 or 4 keto recipes packed with good nutrition and start incorporating them into your planned meals. Have keto every other day. Gradually start removing all the carbs and keto-friendly forbidden foods from your kitchen and keep incorporating simple and easy keto meals until every meal you have includes keto ingredients. This can take a couple of weeks to even months if need be. Once you are fully keto and have gotten accustomed to the new way of eating, you can turn your attention to intermittent fasting. Start easy, stop eating at 7 p.m. and start eating at 7 a.m. Again, it depends on your schedule. Once you have gotten that down, you can focus on gradually adding an hour before eating. Take your time with this one. If you feel too hungry, go back another hour. The best way to overcome keto and intermittent fasting hurdles would be to have patience with yourself, specifically with your body. Understand that your body needs to get used to pretty big changes. If you stumble, don't give up. Remember that intermittent fasting can speed up your ketosis, so you can fall right back into your routine. What are some of the top benefits of joining both keto and intermittent fasting? To start with, the biggest benefit you are going to get will be the weight loss aspect. Not only are you sharply cutting your calories, but it could also benefit people who have type 2 diabetes as well. It can get a whole lot of your insulin in check, and your body will learn how to convert fat into fuel a whole lot faster than it can currently achieve. However, you need to remember nutrition all the way. Why? Because a lack of the right nutrition, regardless of the intentions, will send you further back in your journey. You can do a lot of damage to yourself through malnourishment or deficiencies. Your biggest goal while undertaking keto dieting would indeed be to stay healthy, but you cannot do that if you do not prioritize the food you are eating. So when undertaking both keto points, you will have to plan your meals very carefully, making sure you cover all your needs. Nutrients 101. Depending on what we eat or drink, generally, we are gaining different types of nutrients. Each nutrient has a wide variety of benefits in our bodies and can help keep our bodies healthy as well as strong. So to best use the nutrients and plan the key meals for keto, here is a quick summary of all the different types of macro and micronutrients. One needs to understand just how important they are to our overall health. What exactly is a nutrient? A nutrient is a very specific kind of substance that the body needs to reproduce, survive, and grow. It is a lot like the fertilizer to the soil. Nutrients give the body the energy it needs for the body to perform a wide variety of complex functions. Each living organism requires nutrients. They are very necessary to function and to live. Consider this. Every day, your body needs to complete different roles and internal chores at the same time. Every single cell plays a role, but to complete their roles, they need the tools. The processes that are carried out are done so by chemical compounds, and a good chunk of them are created through the body's chemical reactions. But our bodies can't create something out of just anything, and they cannot create all the compounds it needs. That is why it is so important to eat food that contains the right nutrients. Essential nutrients are the products the body needs, but cannot make by itself. Nutrients are split into two different categories. Macronutrients, which include fats, water, carbs, and protein, and micronutrients, which include vitamins and minerals. Both play vital roles in how the body functions. Taking a peek at macronutrients. You have heard about proteins, carbs, and fats time and again while reading through this book. They are called macronutrients because our body needs large amounts of these foods in comparison to the micronutrients. They are also the easiest to get a hold of, and the majority of good healthy foods contain these four listed macronutrients. Protein, for example, is critical because much of our body is made up of protein. You will find protein in our bones, skin, organs, and tissues. Our hair and fingernails are made up of keratin, which is primarily protein. Proteins do more than act as the Lego pieces of our bodies. They also carry out different roles and functions in many different important activities. For instance, they make the enzymes that help us digest our food. They help to regulate the functions of our body. Proteins also aid in the transportation of certain substances in our cells. Protein is very important to our overall body system, including the communication of the body through your overall nervous system. Protein also helps your body build and maintain muscles, which is why protein bars and shakes are so popular in gyms. And protein can be found in eggs, fish, meat, dairy, and legumes. These food types are all excellent sources of protein. Carbs are the body's first choice for fuel. Your body will use carbs to break them down into sugar and use them for energy. The carbs are divided into two different sections. They are either simple carbohydrates or they are complex carbohydrates. Simple carbs give quick shots of energy, but a person may end up crashing just as quickly. Complex carbs are digested more slowly and can give more stable levels of energy for extended periods. Fiber is also a common source of carbs. It does not get broken down in your body, but helps food to move through your digestive tract overall. Fiber can help your body absorb the necessary nutrients and help with your personalized waste removal system. Fats, the falsely stereotyped nutrients, have finally got their time to shine in the world. Fats are very important to a person's body. They share a similarity to protein, being a building block for the body, and they play a role in a certain amount of our hormones. There are three main types of fat: trans fats, unsaturated fats, and saturated fats. Unsaturated fats are ideal for your health and include omega-3 fatty acids. You can normally find unsaturated fats in salmon, flax seeds, as well as walnuts. Saturated fats are typically found in different animal proteins and should be consumed in moderation. Trans fats are unhealthy fats that most certainly should be limited if possible, avoided. They are the fats you would find in packaged and processed foods, such as a person's packet of cookies or chips. And finally, let's take a look at water, the most important nutrient. A person can go a couple of days, perhaps weeks to even months without food and even make a full recovery. Just a week without water, and you could very well be dead. It is strange to think that water does qualify as a macronutrient, as we generally tend to see nutrients as sources of food. But dehydration can be extremely dangerous for the body, which is why drinking water is drilled over and over again in this book. Speaking of, remember to drink water. When it comes to sources of water, healthy water will do. Whether it be water from the tap in places that provide clean tap water, bottled water, or filtered water. If you think you are getting enough water through your cup of coffee, you would be wrong. Although coffee does not dehydrate you unless you drink a very strong espresso, coffee plays no role in hydrating you either. The amount of water with the caffeine essentially crosses each other out. If you can drink plain water, that would be the best case scenario. For those who struggle because of the taste, they should consider using mint leaves or drops of lemon to add some flavor to the water. Avoid sugary drinks as much as possible. Teas, however, are also a good source of hydration, as long as they do not contain too much caffeine and sugar. Introduction to micronutrients. So, not only do you need smaller amounts of micronutrients, but they are also called micronutrients because they function at a microscopic level. Unless you use a microscope, you won't be able to see them. When you eat and receive these micronutrients, you need a whole lot less than your macronutrient counterparts. It does not mean, however, that you can function with them scot-free. Have you ever heard of anemia? This is caused by a lack of iron, a micronutrient, which can cause you to be constantly tired, short of breath, and even give you spells of dizziness. However, you only need 14.8 milligrams of iron in your body to function properly. To give you an idea, that is around 0.0148 milliliters in total. It is both amazing as well as terrifying over how little we need, but how important such a small amount is for the body. Now that we have established how important micronutrients are, let's dive into the two different types of micronutrients that exist out there. One is called vitamins. The other is called minerals. Introduction to vitamins. I remember plenty of times receiving lectures about having to go out into the sun to receive a good dose of vitamin D. Whenever being fed oranges, I would see countless pictures and books telling me how oranges are filled with vitamin C. All these pictures and promotion of vitamins kept happening all over the place as a child. Problem is, at such a young age, I had no clue why they were so important. Not knowing why kind of made one forget or neglect to keep track of how many micronutrients I was getting. That was till I started to learn the impact. Your body needs 13 essential vitamins. Each one has its very own unique function which the body ultimately needs to stay as healthy as possible. Vitamins are filled to the brim with antioxidants to help fight inflammation and different diseases. Some vitamins are certainly more important than others, like vitamin K, which plays a key role in the building of strong bones. Vitamin C is also important to a person's immune system and circulatory system, and vitamin A plays a key role in helping out a person's vision. Introduction to minerals. Minerals play a role in the support of the body, bone structure, digestion, nervous system, and heart. The minerals are also divided into two different subcategories. One is called trace minerals, and the other is macrominerals. Macrominerals are needed in large amounts, such as calcium, needed for your bone health. And you would also need a lot of sodium and potassium to keep your heart pumping, your nervous system functioning as it should, and your muscles moving. You need a whole lot fewer trace minerals, but they are very important. Iron is a trace mineral, and we had just covered what would happen if you struggle with iron deficiency. How to tell if you are suffering from a mineral deficiency. But what happens if you are suffering from a deficiency? What are the symptoms you need to look out for? Is it just the keto flu, or are you lacking a healthy food source in your diet? Should you be buying supplements? Overall, there are 5 main forms of mineral deficiency. 1. Iron. 2. Magnesium. 3. Calcium. 4. Potassium. 5. Zinc. Iron deficiency. Half of the iron in your body is carried in red blood cells. Iron plays a role in the transportation of oxygen to your tissues. The best sources of iron come from fish, poultry, and meat. As mentioned, iron deficiency tends to cause anemia. It is generally uncommon in the United States, but almost half of all cases of anemia are caused by iron deficiencies. You will probably have symptoms of being constantly weak and tired. You could be underperforming at school or work. Children who suffer from anemia will reflect this through very slow cognitive and social development. Magnesium deficiency. Magnesium plays a role in the control of your blood pressure, blood sugar levels, the function of muscles, nerves, and brain, as well as protein production. The majority of sources for magnesium would include nuts, legumes, whole grains, green leafy veggies, and seeds. Generally, this deficiency is very uncommon for people who are healthy, and early symptoms would include nausea, vomiting, weakness, fatigue, or loss of appetite. When it is left untreated, it can cause a lot of tingling, numbness, seizures, muscle cramps, and abnormal rhythms of the heart. Calcium deficiency. Calcium is highly promoted in the dairy products of this day and age. Calcium is needed to have strong bones and teeth, and the proper function in your blood vessels, hormones, nerves, and muscles. Natural sources of these would be milk, cheese, small fish, beans, peas, broccoli, Chinese cabbage, kale, and more. If you suffer from deficiency, You could see symptoms of cramping muscles, numbness, tingling in the fingers, exhaustion, irregular heart rhythms, and a poor appetite. If this deficiency is left untreated, it could turn into osteopenia, which can cause osteoporosis. For those who do not know what this is, it is a condition wherein the subject is at an increased risk of bone fractures. This is especially true for adults. Potassium deficiency. Potassium works a whole lot like an electrolyte, helping the muscles with contractions, the transmission of nerve signals, and the proper function of the heart. It even helps the body convert carbs into energy. The best sources of potassium would be in the fruits and veggies, such as avocados, bananas, beets, potatoes, and plums. Common symptoms of deficiency would be excessive loss of fluid, such as kidney disease, vomiting, and more. Severe deficiency can cause the muscles to paralyze and the heart to beat irregularly. Potassium deficiency can become very severe and even lead to death if one is not extremely careful. Zinc deficiency. Zinc plays a role in the body's DNA synthesis, healing of wounds, protein synthesis, and the function of the immune system. Zinc is often found in sources such as poultry, red meat, and oysters. Other good sources would be whole grains, dairy products, beans, and nuts. When you are suffering from a zinc deficiency, you will notice a loss of smell, taste, or appetite. Your immune system's function will slow down too. What are the major causes of mineral deficiencies? The biggest cause is not getting enough from the supplements or foods you eat from day to day. This does not mean that different types of diets could cause this deficiency. Now, before you jump to conclusions and think of keto, consider that many of the source ingredients listed are keto-friendly. This is mainly a reference to a diet that relies on junk food or lacks enough fruits and veggies. Okay, so keto dieting could cause deficiencies if you do not add fruits and vegetables to your diet, which you are allowed to do. Restricted diets can cause you to have deficiencies if you do not manage them effectively, which is why meal planning is so important. If you are concerned and think that you might have a mineral deficiency, then it is best to pay a visit to a professional who will take you through some routine blood tests, review your eating and diet habits, as well as undertake a physical exam. You want to prioritize your health above all else. And what about vitamin deficiency? A person would have to write a whole other book to cover the signs and symptoms of vitamin deficiencies. But here are some of the most common symptoms if you are not getting all the vitamins you need. Brittle hair and brittle nails, generally an indication of a lack of biotin. Mouth ulcers, cracks in the corners, generally an indication of the lack of iron or B vitamins. Bleeding gums, generally an indication of a lack of vitamin C. Poor night vision, white growths in the eyes, generally an indication of a lack of vitamin A. Scaly patches, dandruff, generally an indication of a lack of zinc, niacin, riboflavin, and or pyridoxine. Hair loss could be genetics or lack of iron, zinc, vitamin B3, vitamin B7, linoleic acid, or alpha-linoleic acid. Red or white bumps on the skin, generally an indication of a lack of vitamin A and C. If one were suffering from a vitamin deficiency, the chances are big they are also suffering from some or other mineral deficiency. You will have to take a very good look at your diet and make some drastic changes if need be. Even with keto, spending an extra 10 to 20 minutes in your weekly meal planning to make sure you gain all the nutrients will be well worth your while. Chapter 5. Keto recipes. Now it is time to take a look at the foods that are all keto-friendly, as well as some simple recipes to truly kickstart your journey. Keto-friendly foods. Here's a list of foods you can eat: fish and seafood, cheese, low-carb veggies, broccoli, green beans, bell peppers, spinach, zucchini, cauliflower, cottage cheese and plain Greek yogurt, avocados, eggs, healthy oils, nuts and seeds. Be sure to understand the carbs count on the nuts and seeds. Berries, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, coffee and tea unsweetened, cocoa powder and dark chocolate. Here's a list of foods you technically cannot eat: grains, sweetened yogurt, juices, high-sugar fruits, starchy veggies, chips and crackers, baked goods. This would include gluten-free. Technically, however, no foods are really off the menu or off limits. It is all about the carb intake. You need to decide how many of what carbs you want to spend on. So if there is a non-friendly keto food you still want to eat, just remember to stick to the 20 to 40 grams limit in a day, and you'll still achieve the desired ketosis. Keto-friendly mortadella and brie plate. This is a delicious quick-fix dinner for a busy day. Nutrition. Calories, 865. Fat, 77 grams. Protein, 36 grams. Carbs, 7 grams. Fiber, 1 gram. Ingredients: 8 ounces of mortadella, 8 tablespoons of brie cheese, 2 tablespoons anchovies, 2 teaspoons green pesto, 10 olives black, 4 tablespoons mayonnaise, 1 cup lettuce or arugula, 10 fresh basil leaves. On a side plate, place some mortadella thinly sliced. Add the brie cheese, olives, anchovies, pesto, and mayo to the plate. Serve with the fresh basil and arugula or lettuce if you prefer. Enjoy. Keto-friendly cheese and avocado plate. Fresh, healthy, and keto-friendly, this delicious meal has it all. Nutrition. Calories, 853. Carbs, 17 grams. Protein, 35 grams. Fat, 74 grams. Ingredients: 2 tablespoons olive oil for frying, 1 1/4 cup halloumi cheese, 4 tablespoons avocado, 6 tablespoons cucumber, 1 tablespoon olive oil, 1/4 lemon, 2 tablespoons pistachio nuts, salt and pepper. Directions: have the cheese sliced into serving-size portions. Over a pan with the olive oil, fry it until it becomes a golden color. This should take a couple of minutes on each side. Serve it with Greek yogurt, cucumber, avocado, lemon, and pistachios. Lightly drizzle some of the olive oil over the vegetables and sprinkle some salt and pepper. Keto-friendly pizza. Pizza is a favorite go-to for many people, so using this simple ingredient recipe is great for adding a delicious addition to your recipes. Nutrition. Calories, 486. Carbs, 6 grams. Protein, 26 grams. Fat, 39 grams. Ingredients: 2 ounces sausages, cooked and crumbled. Half teaspoon Italian seasoning. Half cup mozzarella cheese that has been divided and shredded. 3 tablespoons bell peppers, green. 2 unsweetened tomato sauce. Directions: place a skillet around 18 centimeters on medium heat. Add around 3/4 of the cheese to the very bottom of the skillet and allow it to melt into a solid but thin layer. Decrease the heat and add the sausage, bell pepper, pepperoni, and the rest of the cheese. Let it simmer for 3 to 4 minutes until the toppings are fully warmed. Sprinkle the Italian seasoning and check that the cheese on the top is melted and the cheese at the bottom is browned. Remove it from the heat, let it cool for 5 minutes, and serve on a plate. You can use some tomato sauce for dipping. Enjoy! Keto-friendly ground beef. A simple, solid keto meal that is quick to make and very healthy addition to the diet while sticking to familiar foods. Nutrition: calories 921, fat 77 grams, protein 48 grams, carbs 9 grams. Ingredients: 3/4 pound of ground beef or turkey, 4 tablespoons butter for the frying, 1 cup of cheddar cheese, shredded, 5 ounces cucumber, 2 tablespoons olive oil, 2 cups of leafy greens, half green bell pepper, salt and pepper. Instructions: dunk and cook the ground beef in the butter until the meat is fully cooked and the majority of the juice has been cooked out. Decrease the heat and add salt and pepper. Serve with shredded cheese and raw vegetables. Sprinkle some olive oil over the salad. Enjoy! Keto-friendly baked eggs. Ideal low-carb food that can be made for breakfast, lunch, or supper. It is a tasty treat that will both satisfy your tummy and your taste buds. Nutrients: calories 547, fat 39 grams, protein 42 grams, carbs 8 grams, fiber 3 grams. Ingredients: 3 ounces ground beef, pork, or turkey, and cook it whichever way you like. 2 1/3 tablespoons tomatoes, crushed. 2 eggs. Half cup of cheese, shredded. 1 tablespoon Tex-Mex seasoning. Directions: have the oven preheated over 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the ground beef mixture into a baking dish and sprinkle it with the Tex-Mex seasoning and add the crushed tomatoes. Sprinkle salt as needed and mix. Make around 2 indentations with a spoon and crack an egg inside of each indent. Sprinkle a little shredded cheese onto the top. Have the eggs in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes until done. Allow it to cool for a little while before eating and enjoy. How to break a fast. This qualifies for fasts that last around 24 hours to longer. Although 16-hour fasts are quite long, by the time you have fasted for a day, your stomach will become very sensitive to certain foods. If you want to avoid unnecessary discomfort, then you should alter your first meal after a long fast. The first rule of breaking a fast would be to stick to a low-carb, high-fat meal. Ideal for keto, right? Generally, that would be the main rule of thumb. If you would like to make some extra effort, then you can consider drinking some bone broth and water and waiting an hour after breaking a fast. Then any lean protein is a great way to start your first meal. Why? Because protein helps to prevent the major hunger cravings that come after a fast. Tip: if you experience a huge craving after a fast, it is usually an indication of a protein shortage in your body. So you really want to go all out with the protein in your first meal after a fast. This, again, works very well with keto dieting. You absolutely want to avoid rough grains, vegetables, and fruits when you first break your fast. This is a big no-no because any other way would certainly set you up for a world of pain and discomfort. This is because fiber is meant to help clean your tummy up, but considering it is already clean and sensitive, it would be like scouring a plate made of porcelain. You also want to avoid simple carbs because they will cause a sudden insulin spike in your metabolism, something you generally do want to avoid if at all possible. So the main thing you need to remember when breaking a fast is lean protein. Chapter 6. Mistake Busters. One of the biggest factors holding a person back from weight loss is misinformation. With the rise of social media, many perks have come along with it, but this has also meant that misinformation has spread a lot more easily. Like adding fuel to the fire, misinformation gives birth to myths that can last for years. Many myths still exist today despite having facts to prove the opposite. This chapter is fully dedicated to busting those myths and taking a look at the truths of keto and intermittent fasting. Considering both have become quite trendy, they have also become the targets of misinformation. The more popular an item or trend becomes, the more misinformation gets spread. Just ask a celebrity. Common myths about keto dieting. The ketogenic diet has proven to be one of the best weight loss diets around. It has been showing up all over the news and appears in conversations at the gym. But as you scroll around on TikTok or perhaps fun Facebook facts, because we all know Facebook is as reliable with its information as Wikipedia, you might have come across these statements about keto dieting. You can eat as much fat as you want. As a kid, I used to dream about living in a chocolate house where everything was edible and the chocolate would not make me fat. It is a dream scenario and in line with the idea that you can eat as much fat as you want. Although 75% of your calories should be going to fat sources, you do not want them to be saturated fats. You should rather focus on unsaturated fats such as nuts, fish, seeds, eggs, turkey, etc. Furthermore, even though there is no direct calorie ban, you should still watch the amount of food that you eat, even if it is deemed as healthy food. Why? Because too much of anything healthy can still end up being bad in the long run. Keto dieting is dangerous. Every diet has its problems and downsides, but that does not mean that taking on the ketogenic diet is extremely dangerous. Taking on the keto diet incorrectly can be a more dangerous practice and increase the risks of deficiencies, etc. But if you focus on staying hydrated and focus on hitting your daily macros, you are on a clear path to avoiding the downsides presented in keto dieting. So, although keto dieting is not altogether dangerous, much like anything else in the world, a person should practice a certain degree of caution and common sense. Keto dieting means you cut out all alcohol. Although beer and wine are known to be heavy in carbs, that does not cut all your options for enjoying alcohol. There are some keto-friendly alcoholic drinks, if you take them in moderation, naturally. Consider this. Most dry wines and light beers, many liquors like vodka, rum, and gin, are low to even no carb, which means they are indeed keto-friendly. So alcohol is not thoroughly out of the question, but still, be very careful of what you choose and how much. Your tolerance for alcohol is likely going to be lower whenever you focus on going ketogenic. Ketosis and ketoacidosis are the same things. Nope. Different name, different results. They are not the same thing. Ketosis involves a metabolic process of fat, specifically using fat as the primary source of one's energy instead of carbs. Your body is breaking down the fat stores directly and converting them into glucose for energy. Ketoacidosis is life-threatening and is a condition where a person has dangerously high levels of ketones and blood sugar. Your blood becomes too acidic and can affect the function of the organs. This can be seen in diabetics and, on some occasions, those who follow the keto diet. You are required to fast. Although you are more than welcome to adopt intermittent fasting into your routine, this is most certainly not a requirement when you turn to keto. Although adopting intermittent fasting does bring along many benefits, if you are not ready for it, then do not feel compelled to practice fasting with keto. The last thing you want is to find yourself discouraged in your weight loss journey, simply because you do not want to partake in the fasting. Everything keto-friendly is healthy. Unfortunately, no. A person will still have to watch the foods they eat because there are a lot of keto-friendly fast foods that can slap your weight right back on if you're not careful. So, although it might be high in fats, proteins, and fewer carbs, saturated fats are not healthy and neither are fast foods. It is a high-protein diet. Not really. Considering that the majority of your diet should be from fat, it should be called a high-fat diet. You should be getting around 75% of your daily calories from fat, 5% from carbs, and around 20% in total from protein. You cannot work out. You do not have to stop your routine at the gym when you decide to go keto, but you might have to alter your workout somewhat. Especially within the first week, your body is going to be undergoing a couple of big changes, and you won't be feeling too good throughout a couple of weeks. It is recommended that you do not try anything new with your exercises and maintain a moderate intensity. That is until your body has adjusted to your keto diet. You also want to double-check that you are eating enough fats to carry your workouts and won't be hitting a wall anytime soon. And the one benefit of exercising while on the keto diet means that it will boost your fat burn up to 2 to 3 times the normal amount. So your weight loss journey will spiral into greater success. However, again, remember to stay hydrated and to ensure you eat enough to keep up with your workouts. Intermittent fasting myths. So now we are turning our attention around to intermittent fasting and all its little quirks. Much like anything else, there are a lot of rumors running rampant about this trend, even more so, one can say, than its fellow counterpart keto dieting. Intermittent fasting is a diet strategy that costs you nothing but good timing and endurance. It is one of the best weight loss techniques, and yet you don't have to take a big bite out of your wallet to afford it. Considering that unless you are taking on keto dieting, you do not have to buy any good new foods, trendy gym equipment, or magazines to keep you up to date. But there is a lot of misinformation being spread about intermittent fasting, and here are some of the top ones you might hear. Intermittent fasting is the miracle potion for weight loss. It is a technique you can use to boost your weight loss, but it does not promise a guaranteed outcome. Intermittent fasting is meant to help you achieve the calorie deficit you would like without too much of a struggle. But a person can overeat during their eating period, which in turn can reverse all the benefits achieved with intermittent fasting, especially regarding weight loss. Intermittent fasting means you just skip breakfast. This is too much of a simplified approach to IF. For some people who choose their fasting period to extend until the morning, it may be the case, but some schedule their periods at different times of the day, which best aligns with their social life and their hunger patterns. So if you want to undertake to fast, you might want to take a look at that schedule and decide when exactly you would like to fast. You want to choose times that are the best convenient for you. Nothing sucks more than fasting during a big family event. Types of intermittent fasting are all exactly the same. No. As you have learned by now, intermittent fasting comes with several different fasting plans. For instance, you could simply be fasting for 24 hours every Monday, Or you would be adopting the 16-8 plan for every single day. Or you could simply practice an 18-6 fasting plan, whichever one works best for your schedule. You might be fasting for 24 hours in the middle of the week and during the rest of the week undertaking a 12-12 schedule. Intermittent fasting is beneficial for everyone. IF, just like keto, is not made for everyone. It would not be recommended for anyone who might have a history of eating disorders, those who are underweight or in a weakened state. Any women currently undergoing pregnancy or breastfeeding are not recommended to fast either. Children are also not going to benefit from their fasting during their year's development. You want them to gain the nutrition they need to grow healthy and flourish. Furthermore, how active they are will determine how much they should eat. You can eat anything you want while working with intermittent fasting. Eating anything and everything you want can put all your effort down the drain. This is not the time to eat out on unhealthy foods or make up for all the opportunities you have lost. Although you do not have to restrict yourself, if you go on keto you certainly will, it is better to stick to a more balanced diet. Although you do not have to ban all unhealthy foods, a person should eat in moderation. The majority of the foods should be focused on nutrient-dense foods, such as healthy fats, fruits, veggies, and lean proteins, whole foods. Intermittent fasting will slow down your metabolism. This is quite a common myth, and likely the first one you are going to hear. However, whenever you are fasting for a very short period at a time, it has been proven to boost a person's metabolism. It also improves the body's ability to adapt. When you fast, the body is given time to just take its time and rest. This could give your body a hormonal as well as a chemical advantage, which would also boost the metabolism. Not only does one fast keep the important hormones for the metabolism high, but trains a person's body to quickly adapt to the fuel source. Intermittent fasting will make you overeat. Not necessarily. There is a stereotype that people will always keep eating after fasting, that the first thing they will do is overeat, but research is not backing up this claim. However, fasting could at times lead to chaotic habits with food. A person might struggle with a sense of urgency the moment that the person's eating window opens, which could lead them to eat less mindfully and frenziedly. Tip: a person should always eat lean protein while fasting. The well-known hunger urge generally occurs when the body is lacking the necessary protein. So in the beginning, rather focus on overindulging in protein. You should limit the amount of water you drink in your overall fasting window. Not. You should never limit the amount of water you drink. You have to be very aware of your hydration, because fasting can make you dehydrated. Every time we eat a meal, many of us tend to drink during our meal, as well as get a whole lot of water in the food that we eat. Now that you are missing out on those opportunities when you are fasting, you need to focus on making up for it. If you are intermittent fasting, you are placing the body inside of starvation mode. There is a difference between fasting and starving. Furthermore, there is no specific time or place when your body is going to enter into starvation mode. But the most common forms of fasting are considered short-term fasting, which also means that you will not be placing your body into starvation mode, especially if you focus on eating enough calories during your eating window. But if you do consider prolonging the period that you want to fast, then you have to consider the risks as well as speak to a medical professional before starting. Your doctor will certainly understand the risks and what would be best for you when undertaking a long-term fast. There are many benefits of taking a long-term fast, which would include weight loss and enhanced autophagy, However, extended fasting would increase the risk of losing muscle and a drop in metabolism. Top keto dieting mistakes. Mistakes are common in every aspect of every person's life, and with the rise of misinformation, mistakes will shortly follow. Whenever someone also tries something new, there are bound to be mistakes that occur from time to time. However, if one can work to avoid the majority of the mistakes, a person could truly spare themselves a lot of pain and reduce the risk of the side effects that you are very well aware of, considering many of the side effects are caused by the mistakes or lack of something. Cutting out carbs and boosting the fats way too quickly. Going cold turkey is generally not the best way to go when it comes to changing habits in a person's life. If you are eating pasta, cereal, and sandwiches for one day, but the very next you decide to jump onto the keto train, then you are setting yourself up for some painful changes in your body. To improve your chances of success, consider easing yourself into the keto diet. Start removing the carbs in your life slowly but surely. You are far more likely to benefit from this and are likely to face milder symptoms as your body slowly adapts to the state of ketosis. Not taking that extra glass of water. As a norm, the majority of the population is already dehydrated. Now, keto dieting can add insult to injury. You have to focus on the amount of water you drink because the chances of suffering dehydration increase when taking on keto. The body also flushes out the keto buildup through a person's urine, which removes the sodium in water. So never stop drinking water, and if you struggle, consider using an app to remind yourself now and then. Also, if you work at an office or a desk, a handy tip would always be to make sure there is a glass of water nearby. If you do not like the taste of water, then remember to add a few lemon drops or minty leaves to add flavor. Considering that you are going keto, you will anyways not be able to consume the sugary drinks, the go-to for many people when it comes to water. Not bracing for the keto flu. Everyone would love to believe they are the exception to a case. However, when a person's body changes from burning carbs to burning fat, the chances of facing keto symptoms are very high, especially within the first 2 weeks. Although this doesn't happen to everyone, do not necessarily count on it. You need to be prepared for this feeding before you think something is wrong and give up on the keto diet before it has barely begun. Forgetting to eat omega-3 rich foods. Because fats are the primary source of fuel in your keto diet, you cannot just turn to any kind of fats. Like you cannot just eat bananas as your ultimate source of fruits. When you choose fats, you will want to include foods that have omega-3s, anti-inflammatory. These are foods generally found in the mussels, salmon, herring, sardines, etc. If you are not a fan of seafood, then consider taking supplements such as krill oil or cod liver oil. There are a wide variety of other healthy fats. It could extend to olive oil, avocado oil, flax seeds, or chia seeds. These are all highly keto-friendly. You could call them keto besties. And they provide the body with the necessary monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats for your body to function at its absolute best. Lacking sodium. You might not be a fan of sodium, but this is very much necessary when you turn to keto dieting. Why? Because when people eat processed foods, they will be eating a lot of sodium. When you are on keto, this is not always the case. There have been many situations where a person on the keto diet will lose sodium as they are no longer eating crackers, cookies, breads, and chips, some of the top sodium-drenched processed foods. Although it is healthy to stop eating these foods, there is one benefit from them that you will be cutting out, which, as you might have guessed, the salt. going on the diet completely on your own. It is always recommended to talk to your doctor first before trying out the keto diet. If you are struggling with medical conditions, then this becomes especially important. You want to make sure your doctor is on board with your plan. If they deem it is a low risk and will not clash with your health care, or perhaps improve it, then you may proceed. Doctors, however, can identify the issues that might appear when you take on the keto diet. They might also have to add some adjustments to your medication. A great example would be insulin for those struggling with type 2 diabetes. You might need a much lower dose because you are cutting out the majority of your carbs. So, do not take on a keto diet if you are struggling with insulin unless you have the supervision and permission of your doctor. As much as it sucks to have to depend on the medical professionals, they are the ones dedicated to keeping you as safe as possible. Not focusing on your vegetable intake. Have you ever heard of scurvy? Scurvy often occurred in ships where people suffered greatly due to a lack of fruits and vegetables. So just because you are on a keto diet does not mean you can cut out all your fruits and vegetables. However, you can't go around eating as much as you want either. It is a careful balance of making sure you do not get kicked out of ketosis and making sure you get the necessary nutrients you need in your body. Your life is going to become a careful balance of eating enough veggies and fruits to gain the nutrients you need, but not enough to fall out of your ketosis fasting state. Getting thoroughly caught up in counting carbs, but forgetting about quality foods. Although the sole purpose of keto would be to cut out your carbs, everything else might not seem so important, like an afterthought. However, when it comes to matters of weight loss, there is no one easy solution as social media might tell you. Rather, it is dedicated work 24/5 to make sure you eat right, get enough exercise, learn to relax, and not allow stress to get into your fridge. So even if it seems simple, cutting out most of your carbs, the journey certainly does not end there. Rather, you want to turn your attention to the nutrient-dense, carb-free, local organic snacks, meats, and foods that are specifically processed to be keto-friendly treats. You want to follow a very nutrient-rich diet, even though you are exercising as well as taking on keto dieting. It might seem stringent, and this reality is a little hard to accept for others who have come so far in their overall weight loss journey. Eating too much dairy. Dairy is a pro-inflammatory food choice that can hinder your overall weight loss journey. If you have protein levels that are way too high, it means your body will slow down your overall weight loss journey and could even bring it to a complete halt. If you keep eating cheese, you will be getting a huge dose of carbs and protein side by side with fat. So although you are allowed to eat dairy products, a person should practice a whole lot of moderation. Enjoying too many keto sweets. A person might believe that they can indulge in keto brownies and cookies simply because all their sugar is substituted and the carb total amount is low. However, the more you eat of this, the more calories you consume. Furthermore, eating sweet foods can boost your craving for carbs, which is the last thing you want. Keto sweets are great from time to time, but they should be a once-in-a-blue-moon situation, not a common snack. Not enough sleep. In a society filled with sleepless cities and binge-worthy shows, the majority of people are lacking on adequate amount of sleep. What they forget is that they place their bodies under a lot of pressure and stress when they do not get enough sleep. This means their metabolisms will kick into survival mode and hang on to the extra stored fat for support. Furthermore, whenever anyone is exhausted, they have the tendency to lean on lattes or snacks to keep themselves going, or even a takeout considering that it is a faster meal. Common mistakes with intermittent fasting. And the mistakes do not end there. Intermittent fasting might seem simple enough, but mistakes can also be made even if the practice is just from abstaining from food. However, avoiding them can save you a whole lot of time and pain. So let's dive right into it. Overindulging. Yes, this was in the myths section, but at the same time, overindulging can become a reality if you allow it to. Although you do not need to hold a calorie counter measuring stick on the days you are not fasting or during your eating period, do not whack your weight loss goals in the head by ordering takeout first thing. On the days you are not fasting and during your eating periods, you should simply enjoy a normal diet, which would be around 1,800 to 2,000 calories for women and around 1,900 to 2,400 calories for a man. You can even cut it down to 1,500 calories if it suits you. If you want a snack to nibble on, then focus on low-calorie foods such as fresh berries or veggie sticks. Not eating enough. The whole point of fasting is to make sure you cut down your calories so you do not have to cut them further down during your eating window. Don't be scared of losing out on the benefits of fasting by limiting what you eat, because you can place yourself into starvation mode by depriving your body of the necessary nutrients and vitamins if you are not careful. You might then struggle with deficiencies, which in turn can lead to long-term consequences, which you could have avoided if you ate properly during your designated eating periods. Tip: this is generally where the fasting equals starving trope comes from. People believe they are suffering from deficiencies because they are fasting rather than focusing on the foods that they eat. Your eating period has greater consequences for your health than your fasting period, so you need to consider your eating period as the time you are stopping up for this fast. Pushing too hard too fast. When it comes to changing old routines, it is not easy to adapt and turn things around in another direction. Your new way of eating should certainly not come with feelings of great shame or guilt. Rather, intermittent fasting is intended for you to enjoy life a little more and not have to worry too much about the restrictive measures unless you deliberately want to push yourself hard. Overthinking. The world's biggest problem, especially for adults. We all know we have a habit of overthinking and overcomplicating even the simplest things in life. And this is also a common mistake made when people want to undertake a fast. Intermittent fasting is simple, which is exactly why people might at times find it difficult to do. For one, you do not have to focus on your daily calorie counting, but rather cutting the time would be cutting the calories as long as you simply continue to eat as you normally would. Common mistakes for weight loss and health in general. If weight loss is your ultimate goal, then you need to understand that it is quite an extensive journey filled with a wide variety of different mistakes. And not all of them have to necessarily revolve around your keto diet or even your intermittent fasting. Rather, it is the small habits and mistakes around your everyday life that could be drifting you further away from your goals. So here are some of the top things you want to look out for in general to help your overall journey. Remember that you should not focus on the scale. It is a common idea that if the numbers don't drop, then it is not working. However, people often forget that weight loss is not a rapid downhill journey, but more like a roller coaster where it gradually starts getting lower and lower. So rather, you might want to take more pictures and use a tape measure, as that will be a far more accurate indication of your progress. However, it is important for you to remain realistic even with these forms of measures. Although keto dieting and intermittent fasting are a great way to build a person's health, adding exercise into your schedule is always recommended. Although it is better if it remains a lighter form of exercise, it will boost your fat loss, prevent your metabolism from slowing down, and add multiple various other health benefits that do not just involve a person's weight overall. If you are partaking in intermittent fasting, then expelling some extra energy can push your body into ketosis a whole lot faster. However, if you do exercise, be careful not to overestimate how many calories you are burning. Instead of exercising based on the amount of calories you might lose, focus on doing exercises you enjoy and are beneficial to you. If you enjoy an exercise, you are more likely to exert greater levels of energy, and the calories burnt will slip in later. If you are partaking in keto, intermittent fasting, or both, you need to focus on tracking what you eat. Although you do not have to jot down word for word, it is still recommended to have a general idea of whether or not you are consuming the right amount of calories. No research is done before dining out. Just because you are limited to a time or type of food does not mean that you can never go out. But if and when you do, it is best to run to your computer and pull out some of your spy tech skills to work out what foods will be best to eat where. Especially if it comes to keto, you might have to do a little extra work in order to figure out the best keto-friendly meals you can have while going out. And don't be fooled if they simply say keto-friendly. You really need to understand how many carbs are in the food. If you do not plan an end to your diet, keto dieting is generally not a lifetime diet. It is more a temporary reprieve to lower your weight until you walk back into a normal but healthier form of eating. So, when you are planning on undertaking keto and even intermittent fasting, plan for yourself a start date and a finish date. You want to have a decent but realistic goal in mind. However, if you just start with something known to be difficult with absolutely no end in sight, then your end of the healthy diet may be a whole lot sooner than what you would like to believe. At the end of the day, don't beat yourself up too much if you happen to make some mistakes. We are all human after all, and mistakes are pretty normal too. If you believe you haven't made any mistakes in your weight loss journey so far, it just means that you haven't spotted your mistakes quite yet. Chapter 7. Tips and Tricks. Tricks and tips can help to determine one's overall success and just make life easier. Think about it. It is tough to take on keto dieting, and it takes a lot of determination and perseverance to break out of the addiction to food and focus on one's health. Everyone understands the cravings for caffeine. Everyone understands the cravings for sugar. But once carbs are cut out, there's an entire food source that you just might end up craving. So what steps can you take to make your life on the incredible journey easier? Best tricks involving keto dieting. Keto dieting is perhaps the most complex of the two dieting methods covered in the book. However, many people have walked the same road that you are planning to, and they have two things to teach about keto dieting. Start off simple. As mentioned before, people have a knack for overcomplicating things. When you add overcomplications while revamping your entire lifestyle of food, that is when you can get caught up in a major tornado. Remember to keep things as simple as possible when you are first starting. Save yourself a headache to give yourself a very simple framework when it comes to your meals. Pick yourself a fat: ghee, geese, avocado, mayo, nuts, butter, lard, oil, etc. Pick for yourself a veggie: broccoli, zucchini, cucumbers, bell peppers, Brussels sprouts, etc. Pick for yourself a protein: pork, fish, seafood, eggs, chicken, protein powder, etc. Enjoy a simple meal. Once you have managed to incorporate a steady keto diet and your body has adapted to its new meals, then you can start adding more complex meals and keep better track of the carbs, fats, and proteins you are eating. Remove any temptations in the house you might have. It is especially relevant if you are living alone in the house to remove the foods you need to avoid. It is a whole lot easier to meet your goals when you do not have any temptations you constantly have to fight. I know for a fact that if sweet treats are not in the house, the chances are that I would be too lazy to go to the shops and buy some. However, I cannot help myself if these items are already in the house within walking distance. Any temptation within arm's reach or walking distance needs to be chucked out or given to a friend, especially if you want to stay serious with your commitments. Make sure, especially with keto, to rid yourself of the following inside of your pantry. Legumes, any form of chickpeas, beans, lentils, etc. Fruits that have high sugar levels, could be apples, pineapples, oranges, etc. Sugar, perhaps the biggest temptation of them all. Remove any ice cream, soda, honey, maple syrup, and any content that would contain high levels of sugar. Starchy vegetables. It would be your friendly potatoes, parsnips, and sweet potatoes, just to list a few examples. Low-fat dairy and milk. This would indeed include low-fat milk, low-fat cheese, etc. Vegetable and seed oils. Margarine is on the top of this list alongside canola oil, grapeseed oil, and soybean oil. Processed low-carb foods. This would qualify as any foods with hidden sugar, artificial ingredients, and starch. So whenever you buy a product, you probably will be spending a good amount of time reading the labels. Tip: if you find yourself a little short on time, consider Googling all the ingredients found in your common products while at home and compile yourself a list of safe foods. Do not go exploring any other different foods unless you know for a fact the ingredients inside. Remember that the stores and labeling companies do love to be deceptive with their labeling and stay legal at the same time, so you might have to watch out for a couple of labeling traps. Just because it says sugar-free, for example, doesn't mean it contains absolutely no sugar. Stock your fridge with the right fruits. After you have had a huge banishment of the wrong foods, it is time to welcome all the good stuff that is safe to eat and will provide you with the necessary nutrients that you need. A good example would be all the healthy fats, such as the coconut oil and avocado oil, leafy greens, such as kale, spinach, or lettuce, low-carb veggies, such as cauliflower, zucchini, or asparagus, any vegetables that tend to grow above ground, meat, such as pork or beef, poultry, such as turkey or chicken, seafood, such as shellfish or fish, eggs. Nothing much needs explaining except that chicken eggs are recommended. Low-carb fruits, such as coconuts and raspberries, full-fat dairies, such as heavy cream and cheese. Stock up your pantry. You want to add all the variety of keto staples into your pantry as well. The majority of ingredients inside one's pantry are known to be high in carbs, but you will have to be the exception in this manner and stock up on low-carb flours, such as coconut flour, flaxseed meal, or almond flour, nuts and seeds, such as sunflower seeds, almonds, and macadamia nuts, herbs and spices, such as dill, cinnamon, or basil, sugar-free beverages, such as tea, coffee, or water, sugar-free sweeteners, such as moon fruit, allulose, or erythritol. And what is the one thing you do not need in your pantry? Any processed products that might be labeled as keto. You always need to triple-check the ingredients on any that claim to be keto-friendly. Markets and products are in the habit of lying to a person. To back up this claim, look out at the shampoo products, Any product that says it is friendly on colored hair or gentle shampoo but has sulfate or sodium sulfate is simply lying to the customer. The same can be said about one's food products. Slide into it gradually. For the sake of your wallet and your sanity, try not to go full-on keto mode. Even superheroes take time before getting their villains upgraded to higher levels, so have some patience with yourself and ease into it slowly. Going cold turkey can be a massive, if not somewhat unnecessary shock to go through. So start with cutting out your soda and candy. Move on to the complex carbs such as pasta and bread, and leave all forms of starchy fruits and vegetables for the very last. Also, remember to listen to your body, but also to be patient. If you still feel hungry, drink a little water and wait to see if you are still feeling the same. Distract yourself with something to do, and around 20 minutes later, your brain should have officially caught up. If you are still hungry 20 minutes after eating, then try out a salty snack like pickles or olives, or add a little more protein to your meal. About the carbs. Remember that your carbs are always going to be restricted during the process of keto dieting. You want to stick to 20 to 30 grams a day. If you go under this number of carbs, that is okay. However, you do not want to be going above this number. About the protein. You do not want to go below the goal of protein if at all possible. It is better to go over your protein goal, but too much protein might have itself converted into glucose and kick your body right out of that state of ketosis, defeating your diet's entire purpose. Ideally, when it comes to protein, you want to keep a nice centered balance. About the fat. The majority of your calories need to come from the fat, so you can consider using the fat as a lever. It simply depends on your goals. Increase the amount of fat if you are hungry, to a certain limit, and decrease the amount of fat if you want to lose weight, within a certain limit. Your goal should be to make sure you get enough calories to not kick your body into starvation mode, but also make sure you achieve the weight loss that you desire. After all, you want to function as normally as possible despite the entire change in your diet and lifestyle. How much fiber do I need? The National Academy of Science has recommended 25 to 38 grams in a day, whereas the USDA mentions around 25 to 31 grams. Studies have revealed that fiber reduces heart disease risks and cancer, but these studies have been conducted using people who have consumed lower levels of fiber. That means you can pull off eating 15 to 20 grams of fiber in a day. If you feel like you need more, then you can add a few grams. Your choice of carbs will dictate the amount of fiber you get in, so going for a complex carbs is always recommended when taking on the keto diet. Will my macros be right? You'll know based on the results you are going to see. Many members who are partaking in keto dieting keep recommending that you take pictures and measure. Do not base your opinions of your weight loss journey purely on a scale, because the body could adapt and turn your fat into muscle. You will see this through pictures and measuring tape, but if you were to look at the scale, you could be discouraged. If you do not see any results such as weight loss after a couple of weeks, then you need to double-check what you are eating. It means that enough carbs are sneaking in and your body is not actually in ketosis. So take a look at that total fat that you are eating and try to figure out where all the carbs are coming from. It might take some time. Your portions will make a difference. Too much of a good thing will always turn out to be bad. Although calorie intake and size are not the primary focus when taking on a keto diet, they will still play a role in one's overall success. It is possible to still gain weight on a keto diet, or any diet for that matter, if you end up eating too much. The benefit of ketosis is the fact that it tends to remove a whole lot of cravings and hunger due to the high protein content. You are naturally going to be eating less, but food can still have a good amount of control over you if you do not pay enough attention. Eat when hungry. People often ask whether or not they should eat if they are not feeling hungry. Ketosis is a very natural suppressant, so you might not find yourself to be as hungry as you used to be in the past. And the good news is, if you're not hungry, then you don't always need to eat. You just want to focus on hitting your protein goals when you are eating, but listen to your body and only eat when your body signals you to. Avoid as much of the keto flu as possible. The keto flu is avoidable to a certain degree. You just need to make sure that you get in enough electrolytes, especially magnesium, potassium, and sodium, to avoid the biggest symptoms of the keto flu. You can start by adding a generous amount of salt to your food, and, although you do not have to, some people have gone so far as to add some sea salt into the water. However, this is only an acquired taste, and it just might be safer for your sake to add it to the food. Easing into the diet slowly can also help in the transition process. Why am I getting headaches with keto? It is an indication that you have an electrolyte and dehydration imbalance. It is a mild version of the keto flu, and you should treat it by adding more water and electrolytes to your diet. Use sweeteners in a responsible way. It is never easy to cut sugar out of one's diet, but the rewards and effects afterward are well worth it. It plays a huge role in a person's weight loss and improves a person's focus, energy, mood, and other effects that people might not have realized. Also, being able to cut out the sugar cravings is freeing for anyone who wants to work on this journey of weight loss. But that does not mean you have to say goodbye to all the sweet things in life. There are a wide variety of keto-friendly sweeteners and recipes that you can try out if you want to. But be wise with the number of sweeteners you want to use. After all, even sweeteners have their dark side. Get support. Everyone understands the need for a good gym buddy. Having to meet someone at the gym might just be enough to get you going with your goals. The same can be said about having a keto dieting buddy. Keto community groups do exist. Hundreds of thousands of people are available to help each other, so you should consider joining a community. Plan for your meals. The best way to make sure you are getting the nutrition you need and place your body in a state of ketosis is by making a good plan. Planning your meals is an actual game changer. When you are on a low-carb diet, it requires a whole lot more planning to A. Stay safe and avoid malnourishment, and B. Make your busy life easier by preparing your meal without having to scour recipes and make the decisions. You can make your customizable plan that best fits your schedule. If you take on intermittent fasting, it might even work out better, considering that you will have to plan your meals during your eating window and make sure that you eat enough calories. If you can plan on what you will eat for each day, it will certainly save you a whole lot of time and money, and it also can offer you a wide variety of choices. It is recommended, though, that you create a meal plan every week. It can give you the time to plan for meal prep. Perhaps cook ahead and boost your chances of success on your ketogenic journey. Healthy tips for intermittent fasting. Although keto dieting and intermittent fasting work for the same results, each have their own quirks and qualities. With keto, you want to focus on your food, and intermittent fasting is abstaining from food for an extended period. Here are some tips when undertaking intermittent fasting. Start slowly. Just like going cold turkey with keto is not altogether recommended, the same can certainly be said about intermittent fasting. So when you start, maybe begin with a good 12-hour fast. This means that you will be eating for a 12-hour period and fasting for the same amount. Then you can move it up to a 16-8 schedule. You can do this by adding an extra hour every week or every day until you reach this ratio. For example, one day you are on a 12-12 schedule. The next you are on a 13-11. Then the next day you are on a 14-10. It can carry on until you reach 16-8. Your body will also grow more used to this transition. Now, it doesn't even have to be over a couple of days, perhaps over a couple of weeks or months, depending on your ultimate goal. Understand exactly why you are doing it. Motivation creates success, but to have the motive, you need a reason. Some people simply do it to boost gut health, others for weight loss. But knowing why you are doing it should certainly help you to keep on doing it. Best of all, once you see the results, the more motivated you may become. So have a clear and solid reason. Not only will it help in social conventions where you are fasting and can give a clear answer, but also in matters of motivating yourself and getting through the hardest challenges that you might come face to face with. There will be moments when you might feel terrible, and these are the best times to remind yourself why exactly you are doing it. Have breakfast as late as you can manage. The best fast can occur overnight and simply push your breakfast time a little later. If you eat breakfast at 8, for example, maybe try and move it to 9 or 10. You can push it whenever you want, and it might even be easier once you reach the office and no longer excessively think about food. It can become surprisingly easy to delay your first meal of the day. Find something that best suits your schedule. It will not be ideal to take on 24 hours fast if you are busy training for a marathon, but you could take on a 12-12 schedule. You know your life best. You know your routine best. That is why there are many options, but you have to be the one to choose the schedule by the end of the day. You need to find something that best suits your lifestyle. What suits your neighbor next door might not necessarily suit you. You might feel better prepared to skip dinner than you do your breakfast. It is all in your hands. Do not make room for comparisons. There is no comparison when you have got nothing to compare it to. Whenever someone compares a chocolate bar or a wine tasting, that is one thing. You are working with similar ingredients wielded in different ways that get you different results. However, when it comes to comparing yourself to other people's success, it is not a fair comparison if you do not hold the same ingredients. If you do not quite understand, think about it. There are a few factors that you cannot control about yourself. 1 is genetics, 2 is your metabolism, and 3 is your lifestyle and routine. Someone who works at home might find it easier to head to the gym in the middle of the day in comparison to those stuck in an office. Someone might have a faster metabolism, and their body just sheds more weight. If you compare yourself without understanding the differences, means you are placing yourself with sandbags on your feet in a race that should just not exist. The only person you should compete against in the world of health is yourself. Constantly focusing on improving your life and making it easier is the fast track to motivating yourself and sticking to a plan. Just because you do not shed as much weight as the next person doesn't mean the strategy you are using is unsuccessful. It simply means you might just have a longer journey. Drink some ginger tea. Ginger tea is a great way to handle cravings during the fasting periods of your life. It has helped keep a wide variety of people satisfied for hours on end. After all, it's all hands on deck when it comes to the struggle of cravings. So use every tool, trick, and card in your pocket to make sure you don't break your fast. Hunger cravings are one of the biggest obstacles you will face when you undertake intermittent fasting. What you can have during a fast. Sometimes you want to have something a little extra than water during a fast. After all, you want to avoid any form of malnutrition. Ideally, it is best to simply stock up during your eating window. However, there are a few do's and don'ts when it comes to fasting, which includes certain things you can drink and certain matters you have to avoid. You can certainly help yourself to some coffee and tea. However, you should drink these without any form of added sugar, cream, or milk, which, depending on how you drink your hot beverages, might make matters just a little more difficult. Another healthy addition would be diluted apple cider vinegar. You can drink 1 to 2 teaspoons mixed in water. Please do not attempt to drink it undiluted. This has vast amounts of health benefits and can help beat the cravings and stay hydrated. You can also drink coffees that have butter, coconut oil, MCT oil, or ghee inside of your coffee. Although oils could be breakfast, they won't break your ketosis, which can help you in between your meals. Finally, bone broth can help replace the old electrolytes during the long periods of fasting. Generally, bone broth is a good way to start breaking your fast. But if you need something extra as you are just starting out your fast, then it is a good addition to your list. However, during your fast, avoid anything that could taste too sweet. Sometimes even toothpaste could break your fast, as well as any oil-based supplements used as sweeteners for your coffee or your tea. Conclusion. Now you have reached the end of a long but rewarding and knowledge-filled journey. Well, the end of the book, that is, but the beginning of a healthier lifestyle. The fact that you have reached this far is already very commending, considering that even the dedication of finishing a book means you can persevere. Keto dieting and intermittent fasting are 2 key methods of weight loss, but it extends a little further than that. Before we finish off, let's take a quick recap of everything you have learned so far. First of all, keto dieting is a low-carb and high-fat content diet. The idea is to cut out a large number of carbs and swap it out with your traditional fats and proteins. The idea would be that you would place your body in a state of ketosis to swap out your fuel source of traditional glucose for body fat, to burn your overall body fat and lose weight. As such, you can receive a wide variety of benefits, such as weight loss, reduction of risks of certain health ailments, and even treatments if you happen to have epilepsy. Keto dieting can extend beyond the simple weight loss and improve your quality of life in general. However, you might also struggle with the keto flu and other symptoms of taking on the ketogenic diet. A person should certainly brace themselves for this probability and be prepared to grit things through. However, if you do find yourself struggling with symptoms after 2 to 3 weeks on keto, then you might have to consider stopping the diet, changing the foods, or even visiting a medical professional. Your body is supposed to get used to ketosis, and therefore these symptoms, however unpleasant they might be, are not supposed to last forever. There are also several different approaches to keto dieting, and depending on your circumstances, you can choose the diet tactic that will suit your lifestyle best. Or if you are not up for changing your entire diet, then you can consider the field of intermittent fasting. Although fasting has lasted for centuries, intermittent fasting, fasting for a shorter time, has recently taken the spotlight and become quite a trend. This is because intermittent fasting is easy to add to one's routine, and you can benefit from more than weight loss but various other benefits. However, intermittent fasting is not all sunshine and rainbows either. It can cause a lot of fatigue, hunger pangs, and more. Keep in mind that intermittent fasting and keto are not for everyone either, and it takes a whole lot of work to reap the benefits of the two. But what if you want to combine them? Is it dangerous? Yes and no. Yes, it is dangerous if you mismanage your diet and intermittent fasting. No, if you follow the rules carefully and plan your meals accordingly to avoid deficiencies and malnourishment. Intermittent fasting can speed up the process of placing your body into keto. It is also evidently recommended that you start with keto dieting first before adding intermittent fasting into the mix. But although you could receive double the benefits by combining the two, you could also receive double the trouble, so be careful and have patience. Don't go cold turkey. And remember to drink water. We also dove into some common mistakes and myths revolving around keto dieting. The two are often interlinked and spread through platforms such as social media or word of mouth. However, misinformation causes greater harm than the diet ever could manage, and a person needs to be very careful before taking on some practice or food. When it comes to intermittent fasting and keto, it is also best to start simple and work your way up gradually. If you expect to have both nailed down in one night, you are bound to be disappointed. Remember, it is easy to start something, but so much harder to finish and reach your goals. Finally, keep reminding yourself of your goals and why you are here. It may be easy to pick up weight, especially for the social majority of us. But when you come face to face with the reality of losing weight, especially in a place set up against it, it is never going to be easy. Finally, understand that simply cutting out calories or going keto and practicing intermittent fasting is an oversimplification of a complex issue. Changing diets, habits, and routines takes days, if not weeks, to accomplish. You will also have to adapt the different choices you have to best suit your specific lifestyle. It may seem like a lot needs to be done, but always think of the rewards and benefits you are receiving. Sometimes it is easier to accomplish matters when the ground rules are already set out. In this case, keto has its set of ground rules and intermittent fasting as well, and you can choose which ones you would like to follow. Once you commit, it is best to stick to it as well as you can, considering that the only way you can reach those peak benefits is by following the rules. However, if you find yourself stumbling and cheating occasionally on your keto diet, simply move on and keep going. The biggest damage you can do to yourself is immediately giving up. This is what causes most people to fail: lack of trying again. You need to understand that we all are indeed human. So trust in yourself and your abilities and keep moving forward. Take your time learning a wide variety of different keto recipes and try out different intermittent fasting schedules. As time progresses, you may find yourself exceeding in other aspects beyond the weight loss, because it also teaches you a whole lot of endurance, self-control, and self-respect. It may not be an easy journey, but the fact that you already want to learn more means you are already a step ahead of most of your peers. We all want to live a happy, healthy life, but many are not willing to make that commitment to reach those goals. So one question is yet to be answered. What do you intend to do with the information that has now been provided for you?